Hello trainers and welcome back to the Pokémon UNITE Asia Champions League. We are back yet again, but this time with East Asia, and we are actually getting very close to concluding the first stage of the competition. Contra, welcome back to the broadcast. Also, my name is Danielle, if anyone's wondering. You can see it on the screen. We are going to be your casters for this weekend, but Contra, hit us with the ball. A lot of stuff's happening this week.
That's right, and when we take a look at East Asia, we've already have, of course, a team that's been running over on top of the table, and that's high five, but there are still teams that could potentially break it into the second as well as third spot, and they really have to fight for it. For all the details necessary, you can hit over to this website on your screen right now for all the information that you need to know about the Pokemon UNITE Asia Champions League, not only for East Asia, but for Southeast Asia as well as India. And everything will culminate all together as they will eventually meet up in Malaysia to duke it all out.
Yeah, and of course, it wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. That's right, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to have all this amazing Pokemon Unite action. We do want to thank Meiji Almond Chocolate as well as you, Treasure, for sponsoring this event, because Contra, Meiji has some amazing chocolate.
Yes, they do, and this year it marks their 60th anniversary of the launch of Meiji Almond Chocolate, and every single chocolate that you have is only carefully selected beans that are slowly roasted to create an aromatic flavor, and the chocolate that wraps the almond is high-quality milk chocolate that only Meiji can produce, and it has a mild taste that enhances the savory flavor of the nuts. And we hope that all of you guys will be able to give it a try if you haven't already. And not forgetting, of course, You Treasure is a jewelry company that was established to shape up the life of its fans and to provide them with joy, and to offer everything from fashion jewelry such as Pokemon to bridal jewelry. If you're ever in Japan, you definitely don't want to miss their store. Stop by their shop in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the jewelry on the screen, it looks amazing. I mean, if you're thinking of proposing, I think a Pikachu ring would be wonderful. But speaking of Pokemon, we are going to be reminding all of you that are watching on Twitch. And if you're not on Twitch, we do recommend for you to at least think about watching the broadcast on Twitch, because we have a Twitch exclusive giveaway right here on the screen. As you can see, sign up on the stream elements with your Twitch account, and then you'll start earning points. And then once you have enough points, you can redeem one of the amazing rewards that we currently have on the screen. And we even have some of the rewards here with us right now. So we are going to quickly show you these off before we jump into our first match of the day. So as you can see on the screen, you have the card tins, we've got keychains, we have these folders as well. And these are not just your everyday folder. Oh, hang on, there we go. There's the zoom in screen. So we've got the card tins here. Each tin, I believe, comes with 3 booster packs, and you also have a Pokemon card. There's 3 types as well. You've got the fighting type tin, the dark tin, and the fire type tin. Then we have the folders. I think we've only got 3 to show off here, Contra. You've got space on your side.
Well, I do have a little bit of space where, of course, you have your Cinderace, your Lucario, and not forgetting right here. Okay.
There we go.
Jiggly. Well, Wigglytuff, actually. I almost said Jiggly, but
good enough.
You know, like, it can evolve.
Yeah, and we've also got these as well. So it comes with the 3 Galarian bird cards. You've got 2 booster packs at the back as well. And we've got a new item on the desk here that we can quickly show off. We've got the acrylic keychain. So we unfortunately don't have the Pikachu model keychains, but these are the acrylic ones. I think you can barely see them. But they are here. They're wonderful. They're very thick. They're very sturdy. So if you do want these acrylic keychains, we do also recommend those if you are looking to pick them up. So if you haven't already, register on Stream Elements so that you can start earning those points, and hopefully you'll be able to take home one of these goodies. Now, as I put this back down onto our desk,
yeah.
Contra, let's talk about some of the teams.
Yeah, and we definitely really want to catch up on, you know, what has happened on the previous week as well. So far, High Five have been able to establish their dominance here in East Asia, and there's still teams like T2 who are also playing catch up, which they may not have such a dominating performance, but they've been able to at least match majority of the ones that are playing in the field. Of course, these are the participating teams, where we have Eternity from WCS 2022 Korea, and from Taiwan Open 2022, they are the first place winner. It's High Five, and also from Korea, it's Snow Show. where from Japan, we have both Secret Ship as well as T2.
Yeah. Now let's take a look at our two teams that are going to be competing in our first best of 3 of the day. Actually, no, we're going to take a look at the qualified teams because the teams are not quite ready as of yet. So right now we are here with East Asia. The 5 teams representing East Asia is going to be Eternity, High Five, No Show, Secret Ship, and T2. Tomorrow we're going to have Southeast Asia with Escape 5, MIS, Renaissance, Rise, and Secret Rare. And then if you're tuning into the Indian broadcast, that's going to be on Sunday, as you'll be seeing God's Reign, Marcos Gaming, Revenant Esports, Sol, and True Rippers finalize their bracket because they're a week ahead of East Asia and Southeast Asia. And so we're going to find out very soon the seeding for India for this weekend. So we do recommend, if you're really keen on finding out what happens over there, tune in this Sunday. It's going to be if anything, a tournament-defining series. But for now, we are still here with East Asia. Contra, what's the matchups for today?
Well, I'm glad that we're all here gathered on a beautiful weekend for No Show versus High Five. This is going to be a pretty huge match as well. If High Five gets another win, I believe they should be pretty much securing themselves on that #1 spot.
Yeah.
And then when you take a look at our second series, Secret Ship, they may not have played as much games. Now they have to fend off against T2. Then they still have pretty much a fighting chance heading into a higher position coming into the brackets. And tomorrow for Southeast Asia, we have Rise versus Escape 5 and Secret Rare versus Renaissance.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really important weekend for these teams. I mean, every weekend has been important thus far, but especially towards the end of the tournament, you really want to get those points in. Now, if you haven't been tuning into the tournament at all, very quickly, the tournament is broken up into 2 main sections. You got the regular season, which is what's happening right now, and we are still in the first stage. Teams are fighting against each other for points, and then what's going to happen is going into the second stage, once the first stage is done, you'll be seeded depending on how many points you have. The highest point team will get the first seed, and then of course the lowest point team gets the 5th seed. These seedings will determine the gauntlet run for that second stage. Now the teams will play the gauntlet stage, and then after that we'll find out who will be the top 2 teams from each region to make it to the offline finals.
That's right, Natalie. And when we take a look at all the other things in store, it's a whole lot of money for the teams to earn, but also they are playing for the pride and glory of their respective regions. So, of course, on the second stage, they fought really hard, and they will still be rewarded. On the top spot, there's $5,000 on the line. On second, it's $2,500 and $1,000 for third placement. None for fourth as well as fifth, though, so they really have to try their level best. Meanwhile, when they do get their ticket into Malaysia, they can win prizes up to $30,000.
Yeah, but at least if you qualify, you are guaranteed at least $1,500 for making it to the tournament. So essentially, like, yeah, everyone wants to make it to the LAN final because that's going to be where all the money is at, Contra. Now, of course, for the tournament rules, very quickly, just going to go through this. We have the usual 10-minute match timer for a standard game of Pokémon UNITE. Every series is going to be a best of 3 5v5. We're going to play the maps Thea, Sky, Ruins with the new draft mode, which was introduced last year. Of course, there are going to be no limits on items. Of course, no level limits as well. No restrictions on Pokemon, but I do think today is going to be the exception to this because Comfy was only released, I think, yesterday. So I don't think Comfy is playable, but if it pops up, then maybe I could be wrong. And then, of course, for the Pokemon support medals, no limits, no rarity limits, everything is viable. So it's all really down to the teams now.
Yeah, despite this, of course, for those who have avidly played Pokemon UNITE, there are a lot of changes other than, of course, having Comfy coming online. So with the new patch, there's a little bit more of a balancing headed into some Pokemon where, you know, what has used to be a little bit dominant may not be as dominant now, but we'll get to that later on because we would definitely like to welcome those of you guys who are new to the show on what draft mode exactly is, where both teams will have to start on the ban phase. Each team eliminates 1 Pokemon to be used in the battlefield, and then when we go on to the pick phase, the first team will get the first selection, and meanwhile the second teams will get the double selection. So they will take turns to get their pick, and once it ends, they will have a little bit more time to go into the preparation phase, where if they have pre-selected the Pokemon, they can also swap it with their teammates, and that's where the element of surprise comes in.
Yeah, you get the mind games as well, where you might be thinking that this player is playing this particular Pokemon, and then the preparation phase happens, and then you start seeing those swaps, and then it really can change the dynamic of that upcoming matchup contra. So the draft mode is played a really, really big role for these teams when it comes to these matches, because you're basically setting up for that game. You are setting up how your team is going to play, you're setting up your late game, your early game, your lanes. So the draft mode, I mean, we've had a fair number of weeks with this across all 3 regions, and I feel like it has played a really pivotal role in all these teams having to adapt to each other. So I mean, the teams have been doing very well with the draft mode. I don't really think we've been seeing too many teams struggle, but I think it has been a learning curve for some of the teams. Because up until this point, everyone has just played the standard Pokemon Unite, which was anything goes, right? There was no bans. I think in a couple of community tournaments, they have their own little custom ban formats. But prior to that, official tournaments just played the usual format. So
That's right.
I love what draft mode has done.
Yeah, and overall, we also see adaptation coming from certain teams where they did see, oh, the other enemies are actually trying to counter me. Maybe I don't feel so confident, and maybe one of your teammates actually play it just as good as you are, and is actually feeling good about it. So
yeah.
I think like this definitely evolves the sort of dynamics that we do have. But I wonder what will we be getting today when we hit directly into our first match, where we'll have No Show versus High Five. Of course, No Show consisting of Sal and QQ, Chobo versus Blossom, as well as ZB.
Yep, and then on the side of High Five, we have Z-Ray, BKZ, Ikura, Xingdi, and Wushan. And I'm really looking forward to this matchup because up until this point, High Five have been more or less a completely uncontested team. I think they have 2-0'd every series leading up to this week. And I'm not sure about you, Contra, but I feel like No Show might put up the toughest fight for High Five yet.
Probably so. I mean, No Show, despite them having lesser games to play on the earlier weeks, now they are also showing strength from every single matches that they played. And when we talk about No Show, you got to talk about Sal, because he's been phenomenal on a lot of all the Pokemon that he picked. And just a little bit more on Sal, he cannot live without Pokemon Unite. Don't we all?
I mean, that's why we're here, Contra. You know, so we're here to watch Pokemon Unite. Oh my goodness. So we've got BKZ now on the side of High Five. He likes to play Serena, and he wants to see the view in KL, and his recommended local food is stinky tofu. I know stinky tofu has been pretty controversial here, especially for the foreigners, because they're like, oh, why would anyone eat this? But it's kind of delicious.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, like, at first I thought, like, hey, stinky tofu, we kind of have that in KL as well, but when I tried it in their place, it's so different. But anyways, we were already in the draft, and we're already seeing bans onto both Mew as well as Snorlax. I believe this is one of the first few bans that includes the Snorlax.
Yes. Also, I do want to quickly remind our viewers, we are playing on the new patch. So if you haven't already found out, there's been a very big patch uploaded onto Pokemon Unite, and we have seen a lot of changes. We saw a lot of nerfs going into Scizor and Scyther. We saw buffs to the Water Urshifu, nerfs to the Dark Urshifu, buffs to Hooper, and I do believe we saw... I'm trying to think what their other Pokemon. Clefable actually got buffed as well, which was rather surprising. That Pokemon did very well. But for now, we've had a pretty interesting draft here for High Five. We've got Garchomp, we've got Blastoise, we've got Hooper. I mean, sure, we've got the usual two up top, but this is such a interesting draft from High Five, to say the least.
That's right, and I think we had a glimpse of it coming in from the Southeast Asia region, where the first Blastoise was being used alongside with a Hoopa, where you could easily rotate across the map when he goes unbound.
Composition?
And we also do have a Trevenant on the other end as well, which is relatively exciting. So I really am curious how much No Show has to offer on the table, especially when High Five, they're really playing with a lot of all these details where it's just telling you, we want to fight.
Yeah. All right, so we kind of... Oops. All right, we're going to have a little bit of an error here. Now, assuming that we're not going to be going for a redraft, I think this is official drafts from both teams. I don't know how to describe it. We saw a lot of crazy stuff. So we've got High Five with probably one of the most bizarre drafts I have seen thus far, right? They've got the Hooper, but then the rest of their Pokemon Blastoise, Garchomp, Urshifu, and I'm assuming it's Scyther, unless maybe they want to try Scizor, I'm not 100% sure. They've got a very, very demanding lineup. All the Pokemon on their team need levels, they need experience. Their early game, it's going to be rather difficult, but these Pokemon are in the hands of high five, so anything is possible. As for No-Show, they're really embracing the new healing meta, which is what we're starting to see. You know, you've got the Slowbro, who's got his natural sustain. You've got a Blissey to come in to also be there for potential heals. We're not sure if it's Safeguard or Soft Boil as of yet. They've got Delphox as their main sort of burst damage, but also can be there for healing reduction. But then again, you can't really utilize this because Hooper's form of healing isn't like your standard healing Pokemon,
Yeah,
right?
it's not as prominent as compared to the rest in a sense. And, well, we're already seeing a little bit more retaliation coming from Ikura. It's just extended all the way to the back, hoping to just slowly weather down EP, and backup has arrived. Xingdi will continue to go on to take out the first knockout upon No-Show, but there is still going to be a little bit more of a challenge, though. Slowly withering down Zizire, and he's got to make a run. Ikura's going to be able to hold him back.
Yeah, luckily there was no vision for No-Show, so they were able to get out of there without any KOs, minus the single KO on the Scyther earlier on. But I am really keen to see how High Five is going to make this draft work, because it's very demanding, and if they get this KO onto the Slowbro, that's going to be a big chunk of experience for this very demanding lineup.
Indeed, and as much as we talk about the brand new patch having changes onto Scyther, he's still being pretty much prominent across the field, still very proactive coming in from Xingdi, already getting 2 knockouts in within less than 2 minutes.
Yep, and then we've got BKZ just farming up here for free. You know, he's not really being contested. He's not worried about this this duo up here. It's a Blissey Trevenant duo. Now, here's the thing. Trevenant is probably one of the most tanky Pokemon in the game, if you sort of let him do whatever he wants. But when it comes to pressure and you pair him up with the Blissey, especially with the Pokemon that High Five have up here, you're not really going to be doing too much. You won't be able to zone out the Garchomp. He's just sort of going to be there. He's not worried about being KO'd either. So I'm really curious to see what's the plan here for No-Show, because they're putting so much emphasis in that bottom lane that they're just sort of leaving BKZ up top to farm for free.
Yeah, and I believe that what No-Show really wants to do is just absolutely to break wall High Five when it comes out to fights. And speaking of fights, Chobo extended way too far forward, and instead they're looking for that 1-for-1, but immediately you have the Hoopa to save the day.
Yeah, you got the hyperspace hole. I mean, this is going to be so annoying for No-Show, because when you're playing up against a Hoopa, one of your biggest benefits of it is that if you're up against a team that can't get those immediate KOs, you just go back to base, heal back up, and then you're fine and dandy. You can just keep on going. In this game as well for No-Show, they've gone for the Safeguard Blissey. It's not the soft-boiled. So they're prioritizing that stun resistance, the shielding. I'm just a little bit worried that I don't know if this is going to be enough, really, because they're up against such a scary late-game lineup.
That's true, and overall, No-Show, they may have actually arrived to the scene pretty much early, but High Five, they can quickly go on the reset. Take a look at Xingdi. Is he going to steal it? Instead, No-Show secures the Regirock in hand, and Chobo is going to be hunting for them.
Beautiful.
Well, they are going to be scoring some points from here on. What a retaliation from No-Show to dump in all the opponents that they need from the bottom lane.
Yeah, this is really important, because you have to realize, especially for High Five's lineup, they really, really want to get the Regis down bottom, because that's a crucial injection of experience for their team. They really want those levels. Now, they did sort of sacrifice the Eleki up top, but to be fair, I don't really think you're in a position to care about it as No-Show. Your power spike is now, and you want to do your absolute best to slow down High Five, especially before that late game. But look at that immediate delete onto the Greninja, and now they're going to go after Blossom as well. 2 Pokemon down. Look at this. High Five is saying that we don't care if we're a late game composition. We are still going to run at you, and you can tell No-Show we're just not ready for this. Even Chobo the Treven could potentially go down here. He is still outlasting, but just for how long?
Yeah, he's just going to buy as much time, but slowly chipping away Xingdi. You give him a few more levels, I believe this Treven's going to be doing a whole lot more. But for the time being, though, High Five have been able to respond in kind. And this Hoopa Pig has been pretty much devastating for No-Show to even keep up with the pace. So long as once they do reach their levels and when they're fully evolved, they should be able to put up a better fight, even though they had a good lead on that Scyther. Now it doesn't really matter all too much, where it's starting to become very difficult to actually burst any members of No-Show.
Yeah, I think the Hooper pick here is really starting to throw No-Show off because this Pokemon makes High Five so mobile because they have access to being able to teleport all across the map. I mean, that was Phantom Fireworks, Stealth Fox goes down. That's just more experience for High Five. This is something that you need to be very careful of if you're No-Show, especially up against High Five's lineup. You can't give away these free knockouts because these free knockouts are also giving away experience. They already valued that experience early on with the Reggie down bottom. We got the new Reggie here. It's going to be the Regice, so no attack or defense bonus. But look at this. High Five is saying that we're just going to assault this top goal zone. And look at No-Show. They can barely zone these Pokemon out, and they have to be careful because you've got a Blastoise here who has the Hydro Typhoon available, but they're just going to go for the Rings Unbound down bottom. They're saying, like, it's okay. We're going to teleport up here. You are so busy defending your top goal zone. We're going to get the Regice.
And immediately they do so. They just set up this huge decoy, but you know what? No-Show says, you can have that. I'm just going to be dunking more points over top side. But BKZ is holding down the front lines, and eventually, as much as he will falter, but he bought enough time for High Five to do even more.
But the damage has been done though, because look at this. High Five have been camping this bottom goal zone, scoring those points for free. And look at that, they're just TP home. They're like, yeah, bye. This is the thing you have to worry about when you're playing up against a Hooper. This Pokemon, I am surprised that it has been undervalued, but it did recently get a buff, and we are starting to see High Five really flex with this Hooper pick.
And I just absolutely love it. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, another episode of Doctor Strange where he's like, yep, I can do this again, and again, where High Five definitely are looking forward towards securing that Regieleki, but they don't really have to force a fight for the time being. And so long as they buy a little bit more of time and attention from No-Show, they should be able to at least gather more resources across the map. And for the time being, High Five have been able to match the tempo also well with what they had early on. And oh my, they really have to find a little bit more of that wiggle room, because right now, priority for No-Show is to protect EP, because this Stealth Fox is the main source of damage.
And look at this. They can score these points because they have the access to the Hooper. They have the Rings Unbound ready if they want to use it, but they kind of just feel like they don't need to. Yeah, the goal zone may have gone down in that top lane, but I think if you're High Five, you sort of don't care. You still got that level advantage, and here's the thing. You lose a fight up here, this is going to be a big jump in experience, and look at that, BKZ, he just does a massive setup onto No-Show. They're just about to lose the Trevenant. He will go back, and at least he gets the Horn Leech to push them away. But look at that, BKZ just dives in! Oh my goodness, No-Show are losing Pokemon left, right, and center. They've lost the Greninja as well. Here's the issue with No-Show. You lose either of your damage dealers, and that's it. I think you just cannot contest High Five. Everything is in the Delphox and Greninja basket.
Not at all, and thankfully, it's just about the nick of time where they do have the
BKZ is 15.
Rayquaza spawning really soon, but
BKZ is 15.
I don't even understand. I mean, like, this guy's just gathering everything around the map, and he's just got levels for days.
I don't see No-Show being able to eliminate BKZ. He is just so big. He is one of the scariest Pokemon in the game, especially if he's at such a high level. And look at this, they see BKZ, they say, guys, we have to use the Slow Beam. And they will use it, they have to use the Slowbro Ultimate, but can they get the elimination off in time? He will actually be able to get the Unite off, but he will go down 23 seconds off the table. Is it time to redeem yourselves as No-Show? It looks like that might be it. They've got 2 Pokemon so far. Blastoise is still up. They've actually used the Rings Unbound already on that Hooper, and now they're going to have to try and get away with this Urshifu. He's still alive, and it looks like he might be able to. Nope, he will go down to that Greninja. No-Show might be able to turn this around, but they have to be careful. Hydro Typhoon is still available on Ikura, and if he needs to use it, Hydro Typhoon gets used, and it will still go into No-Show. So now it's time for High Five to defend. Can they stop these points from being scored?
And I wonder, could they actually do it fast enough, especially when you have a Hoopa to deal with. But Chobo, he will try nonetheless, but it will still be a 100-pointer coming in from the Blissey on the top end as well. We have the Slowbro with First Blossom scoring another 100, but High Five is keeping this competitive. It's only a 50-pointer difference, but here goes EP though. He's got just about enough. 44 amplified by double. It's just gonna be perfect for them. But High Five, they're all over the place right now, and they're being desperate. They're going all the way into the second goes on over the top end to see if they can make it work. But AP still pulls through another 44.
But here's the thing, though. They've got 28 seconds, and High Five, they are grouping up to go for a big mid push. But my concern is whether they can score these points or not. They've got 30 on the Blastoise. I think they got 30 on the Hooper, 10 on Xingdi. I just don't think this is enough to make the comeback happen. No-Show may have just outplayed High Five, and it came down to the slow beam on BKZ, eliminating the biggest threat.
Indeed, and I felt like he really wanted to go dive deep into those territories, but the problem is you're not supposed to be the one initiating. Wait for the Blastoise, and then go ahead and set things up alongside with the team.
My goodness.
All in all, I mean, High Five, they fought really well, but No-Show did it so much better because they understood what is the biggest threat within that matchup itself. BKZ surely has ample amount of damage, but those damage will matter if you're being suppressed.
Yeah, I really think it came down to maybe High Five being a little bit too overconfident going into that late game, because realistically, you look at the level differences between the two teams, you had a level 15 Garchomp. I think the highest level on the side of No-Show was maybe 12. I think the average level across the board was about 11. And that's a big gap between the two teams. But once BKZ went down, that was a lot of the firepower down on High Five. And also, BKZ, he plays a really big role in actually suppressing some of these Pokemon on No-Show. You have to be careful of the Dragon Rush, Dragon Claw combo because it shoves you, it also stuns you at the same time, and it gets you within melee range of BKZ. So, yeah, maybe High Five a little overconfident, but also No-Show, I think they just did the right thing going into that late game as well. They know the priorities and they got the right Pokemon.
Yeah, and overall, like, you look at EP's positioning, it has been pretty much pixel perfect, where, sure, he did get caught out once or twice in the early game, didn't matter, but that Rick was a fight. I think he was absolutely left untouched for most part, where, sure, there was a little bit of goose chase going on, but they have managed to dissect every single form of threat coming from High Five, where ZZ Ray as well as Xingdi came in a little bit too late to the party, or shall we just call it out, BKZ absolutely overextended. He has no reason to be there.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. He was in a very aggressive position. I think that's just to put it lightly. And High Five were just not ready for No-Show to all be there and to basically just shut down BKZ. So going into this next game, I think firstly, something that's definitely going to change is maybe High Five going to a bit more of a classic composition, because this was definitely something that was really unusual. And yes, I know we had a patch. Hooper, definitely, I think we're going to see Hooper again going into that next game, but I kind of feel like maybe they need to pick something, or at least a couple Pokemon that give them, or at least ease some of the burden in that mid-game, right? I think one of the big things with High Five up until this point in the tournament was that the team was so well coordinated that they would basically just shut down their opponents either during the laning stage or the mid-game. This game was very lopsided.
Pretty much so, and I think like there's just this sinking feeling in me that they probably would be able to run it back, because when you take a look at that early game, they've matched up on that tempo. They knew what's at stake. They tried to stop EP.
Look, it's not like the lineup didn't work either, right? Like they did fantastically with them. It was just the execution.
One instance like this.
Yeah, this was the game-winning fight essentially, because I think BKZ, he hadn't been knocked out up until that point, and so when you're getting a 20 to 30 second knockout timer, especially at this crucial fight, it's more or less going to dictate whether your team wins or loses, especially if it's a level 15 Garchomp. So props to High Five trying to get the steal. I can understand wanting to save the Hydro Typhoon in that situation, because you wanted to get that the final hit as well as maybe the knock-up so that you could get the steal. But it would have been fantastic if they could have all grouped up together and been able to fully utilize the Hydro Typhoon, because it's a massive Unite booth.
And I am just pretty interested to see like if there's going to be any form of changes coming in from No-Show as well, because they were also daring enough to bring in something very different like their Trevenant, but they also identified that, hey, Ikura Snorlax was a huge problem to many other teams, and they finally, teams are starting to respect High Five's prowess, especially for Ikura. So, you know what, let's also take a look at, you know, all these sort of updates that we have after that sort of match. But I love what I'm seeing for our very first game.
Yeah, speaking of seeing, let's just sort of rewind and take a look at everything as we skip through these highlights to sort of recap what really happened in that game. Because, I mean, we saw what looked like originally No-Show going to take that mid game, right? The team looked fantastic. They went to the bottom objective. They managed to take it rather convincingly. But then mid game was, honestly, it was all over the place. I think there were some knockouts that shouldn't have happened on the side of No-Show, and High Five shouldn't have gotten those knockouts, but they did. And then it was a very messy game. I think that's just the best way to put it.
Yeah, and we just love all these chaos overall. But if you guys might have missed out some of the action on the past week, check this out.
뒷문을 열어버려요.
그러면 여기서 노쇼는 살아있는 게 중요해요.
그렇죠.
살아있는 게 중요한데 오히려 잡는다면 이건 대형 사고죠. 에페가 잡았고, 이거 카이팅이 나가는데요 지금. 길가르다가 뒤쪽 갈래면서 이거 진영 깨지는 것 같습니다.
에스포의 완벽한 스라카 움직임을 보여줍니다.
过头了，不过你要保军塔，这时候不是应该赶快开吗？哎，BKD 的位置不是特别好，幸福蛋直接飞过来救他，看能不能把他补起来，一直补，还差那么一点点，只有顶住了吗？顶不住，有换掉一个，勉勉强强还行。BKD 还在输出，真的换住了，金福蛋没倒，金福蛋护驾成功，哇，太神了！
So,
Are they gonna get it?
I think in this match, yeah, right side.
SK5's got it.
Doesn't really matter though. That's the question. Like, do they do enough damage? Because look at this. Like, if you're MYS, maybe you just turn and go onto Escape 5 side of the map.
They're just gonna go all the way to the back. I think this business room might just be able to put in enough points, 100, but they still need a little bit
Black
more than
light.
50.
Oh.
It got cancelled. They're just extending all the way out just to hope that Renaissance doesn't extend their points and they will still get their hands on Blissey.
Yeah, they do get the knock in the back lines, but I just don't think it matters at this point. Eeyore does not do enough damage to threaten Renaissance. They're just so tanky, so strong. And watch this.
Okay.
Players from True Rippers are there. Things can go vary. Rayquaza is also being hurt right now and being knocked out. In the meantime, might finds 2 KO streak, make it a 3rd KO streak. Can he take away his position with the block, gets pushed right into the mid, but he uses his Unite. Another Unite I think did get used, but a Unite coming in from wall finds value, eliminates the slow bro, and now Swifty trying to make use of his own, but a brilliant play coming in from...
엄청나긴 하네요. 근데 우라우스 기가 묶여가지고 지금 기동력 좀 아쉽거든요.
자, 잔디가 계속 힐을 넣어줘야죠.
이러면서 계속 채워주고,
S4에 위험합니다.
바닥뼈가 살짝 끌었고, 와, 이거를 컨트롤 싸움에서 S4이 리드했어요.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the highlights, trainers, and you're basically caught up on sort of what's happened in those previous weeks. But we are getting ready to close out the final 2 weeks of the Pokemon Unite Asia Champions League. But we are here with East Asia. And before we jump into game number 2 of this best of 3, Contra, we got to quickly recap the patch notes. For anyone that didn't manage to see that, we got a bit of a balance update prior to this week.
Yeah, and overall, there's a few Pokemon that needed a little bit more attention that we're looking at Clefable on those pick rates, and finally she's getting a little bit more love, and pro players have started to pick up the Pokemon from the past week onwards, and we're also seeing our debut of Hoopa, which was just played a couple of minutes ago.
Pretty effectively as well, might I add. Yeah, so just very quickly trying to go over these adjustments. I think we got a heal buff on the side of that Clefable with Moonlight. We got a lot of cooldown reductions on that Hooper to make it a little bit more viable. For the Dragapult, this one was a little bit strange. It was buffs to Shadow Ball. This is probably the least used ability on this Pokemon so far. We have seen Dragapult. I don't think any of them were with Shadow Ball yet, so maybe in the coming weeks, we might start seeing the rise of Dragapult, maybe with that Shadow Ball. As for Urshifu, if you're seeing the buff and nerf, if you can look at the colors, you can tell. Actually, no, it's the other way around. They nerfed the Dark Urshifu, the Wicked Blow line, for anyone that doesn't remember, and they buffed the Water line of Urshifu. And I think I've definitely felt the buff on the Water Urshifu in my pubs, but we haven't seen it yet in competitive play. And then, of course, for the nerfs, Mr. Mime, Scyther/Scizor, and the Sableye, we got some nerfs for those Pokemon because they were a little bit too strong. And I did see, I think, mixed opinions on the Mr. Mime nerf, because some people were worried thinking that Mr. Mime was in a good spot, other people saying that maybe he was just doing a little bit too much damage for a support. But I'm curious to see, like, is this going to be maybe a really big downfall in Mr. Mime picks? But we have seen quite a lot of it leading up until the latest patch.
Yeah, and on top of it, of course, Sableye has still become that prominent Pokemon to still poke and prod and still go for all these back caps. But for today, we have not seen any of it. I think there is also a very good reason why, which I was about to highlight, where there is a bug going on with one of the abilities that Sableye has. I believe it was Shadow Slash.
Shadow Sneak, yeah. So just very quickly for anyone wondering, so Sableye this week, he is in a bit of a weird situation. He's got a bug happening with the Shadow Sneak. So what's happening for this week and maybe next week up until this gets fixed, teams will still be allowed to pick Sableye, but they're not allowed to skill Shadow Sneak. If a team skills Shadow Sneak, that's unfortunately going to result in an auto loss. So I wouldn't be surprised if teams just don't pick it, because up until this point, Shadow Sneak has been basically the skill to go for prior to the patch changes as well.
And out of habit, right? Maybe if you're that Shadow Sneak type of Sableye and like you accidentally press that button, like you don't want that to ever happen in competitive.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of the teams are just going to maybe err on the side of caution and don't pick the Sableye. Of course, that's probably why we're not getting bans as well, because they're saying like we don't have to worry about that line of Sableye. But now we have Pokemon No-Show. They are really embracing this healing meta because they've got Slowbro, Mr. Mime, and the Blissey. Whereas on the side of High Five, they are going to go back and pick up the Eldegoss. So really surprising that we're not going to see the Hooper at all. Urshifu and Scyther, pretty common picks. And I'm really happy that they're going to pick up the Delphox themselves, because Delphox is probably the only Pokemon that can really counter this healing meta.
Yeah, and overall with them having better sustainability on
and
top
the healing
of this
reduction
lineup,
as well.
this is going to be looking pretty good for High Five as compared to what they had, where they definitely did struggle when it comes down to the offense that No-Show has offered. And now they're also bringing in the Tyranitar in the bag. But is this really going to be a Talonflame?
I was going to say, if this is a Talonflame, this was going to be a very interesting matchup. But Crustal's making a return. High Five.
Welcome back, Crustal.
This team makes me happy because they give love to a lot of Pokemon that don't get it. So Crustal going to be picked up on the side of High Five, but it is going to be pretty interesting to see how it's going to go up against this Tyranitar Blissey combination on the side of No-Show. Not just that, it's even Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime and Blissey are some amazing Pokemon that can really enable that Tyranitar, and Sal is going to be piloting it as well, so he is going to be getting a lot of priority for the experience. But here's the thing, again, Tyranitar, he is definitely a late game Pokemon, right? You need to focus on those big objectives such as the Reggie down in the bottom lane because you want the experience. You also want to make sure he has enough space to get the levels so that he can actually hit Tyranitar at a reasonable timing. I think in most cases, especially if you are a farm prioritized Tyranitar, if you don't hit T-Tar before 6, you've missed your timing.
Yeah, that's true, and now EP is also switching things up to go on this Lucario, which gives them a little bit more that early game priority to try to match up against the Scyther as well. So we may not have seen Lucario to be the most prominent of picks, but I wonder, could they basically do enough to reach the back line to find ways to take out that Delphox in those team fights? So
yeah, this
is definitely going to be the approach that No-Show is going to be going for. Meanwhile, High Five, they really have to slowly peel layers and layers of No-Show, especially with the Delphox, to melt down the rest of the Pokemon on the side of No-Show.
Yeah, I will say this is going to be quite a task for Delphox to do on his own, right? I mean, Z-Rays, I believe, is piloting the Delphox this game. So there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders to make sure that he doesn't get picked off by the Lucario, and also manages to land some of those really big moves so that he's able to deny a lot of the sustain on the side of No-Show. But of course for No-Show, they have to focus the Delphox. Not only is it a big source of damage, but also the healing reduction. Get rid of the Delphox, then you are going to be able to heal and outlast in these fights. But look at this though, Xingdi just doing a lot of work there with the Scythe. They're getting those 2 beautiful KOs, and also just going to be continuing on with this pressure. I mean, look at this No-Show really struggling to really do anything, trying to get the KO onto PKZ. Barely get, no, he won't even get it. No opportunity. Beautiful back up there from High Five, and also a blunder on the side of No-Show.
Yeah, he had a window of opportunity the moment that they were all backing off, and now Ikura is also going to take the brunt of damage coming from Sal, but there will be the rest of High Five to be able to hold the line for the time being. Chobo's also going pretty low, but Ippy's here to clean up shop, and Xingdi's got nowhere to run. He fights back, and they are going blow for blow, still getting it done. No-Show though, they're giving a lot of all these resources back onto the side of Ippy.
Man, I have to say, respect to No-Show. I love how they're reinforcing in these battles, making sure that they do have the numbers there to really win these fights. And while that's all happening, they're also creating a distraction because there's no such thing as invades coming in from High Five to pressure Sal. Sal has been free farming on the Tyranitar, and he is on his way to hitting a really good timing for that level 9 evolution. But we still are having this battle in the mid lane. We still have the Altaria in the mid lane, I believe, but it will finally be taken on the side of High Five, and we have seen the evolution of Delphox, so Z-Ray is ready to put out some big numbers, and I hope No-Show is ready for this as well.
Oh boy, I think he's going to be 1 level up ahead of everybody else if that's going to be a full commitment, and that's a cause for concern as well, where Ippy, because he was having so much attention being brought to him, he's slowly getting weared down. I don't think he really wants to challenge BKZ.
Yeah, you kind of have to be careful, right? I mean, he's level 9 compared to the level 6, I think, of the Urshifu, but you still need to be careful. If you got accidentally knocked out there, that would have been devastating. But we have a 4v4 in that bottom lane so far, and this Rock Chamber is causing a lot of issues for No-Show because they just can't freely move. And High Five even got the Reggie for themselves as well. Now No-Show are going to be sent reeling with the first KO onto the Slowbro, the next one onto that Mr. Mime. And now they've got 2 Pokemon to defend this goal zone, but I just think at this point you've got to get out of there. But Lucario are going to continue fighting. Blissey goes down, and now it's all down to Epe. But is there anything you can do on this Lucario? No, he will be fainting, and that's it. High Five. They're going to completely destroy that goal zone.
Not at all. I mean, just look at how disruptive this Crustle is in that team fight. They absolutely get zoned up, and they were put literally backs against the wall. Where you just couldn't really run from him, and Ikura continues to lock them in place. Nothing much that first Blossom could possibly do. The moment this Lilbert walks up, like, you're basically leaving him high and dry for the rest of High Five to fully commit.
And look at that big push. This is a 5-man push on the side of High Five. And Tyranitar, Sal is just finally fully evolved, and he is slowly waddling his way up there. But what is there really that you can do? Regieleki is going to be easily taken by High Five, and so No-Show prioritizing experience instead. They're going to be sending Tyranitar down bottom. They want to make sure he is as fat as possible before this next upcoming battle. And it might be very soon, as this Reggie is bouncing to that top goal zone.
Look at Ikura, he's going to be able to find a little bit more of that wiggle room, but there is BKZ to buy a little bit more time over top end to chase it onto Chobo. But they find Ippy in return. He hopped in just way too soon, but there's not going to be enough responses coming from No-Show. They did find that takedown on that Psyker, but it's still not going to be enough. The Regieleki is still causing a little bit of problems, but Sal, he will lead the forefront.
Oh, they've got to be so careful with the Crustle, though, because when you're going up against Tyranitar, he does that pure damage, but the healing is there, and the Reggie is somehow still alive. It should be knocked out there, and it will finally go down. Crustle going to be eliminated there with a nice big skull from Blossom. No successful push there on the side of High Five. That was a very long, drawn-out battle, but it did waste time on the side of No-Show, right? Basically, that fight prevented Tyranitar from going out to farm all of the wild Pokemon, and now it means the bottom objective, it was open, and it looks like it might go in favor of High Five as well. Scyther quickly whittling this down. There's just no one here taking that bottom objective.
Yeah, and that has caused so much chaos for No-Show. Not only are they denied the wealth of experience that's around the map, but no opportunities for them to also lurk as well as to score some points. Like they're stagnating since the second minute point onwards, and High Five just understood their power spike where you know you don't really want to deal with the Tyranitar when he's skilling very late in the game, so why not just deal with it as soon as possible? So High Five, sure, they lost a couple of fights, but that drawn out fight, it's surprising to me on how much sustain you have, especially when you have not only the Crustle to be frontlining, this Urshifu as well as Scyther can just hold their own while Elgas can just give them a helping hand at the same time.
Yeah.
So, nothing much this Lucario could do to find that opening. You saw what happened to EP the moment he hopped in. Deleted.
And that's going to be another Reggie on the side of High Five. I mean, this is a pretty interesting predicament. If Sal gets spotted, oh, he just teleports home just in time. But the rest of his team, they're going to have to get out of there. I hope NQ does not get caught. Really nice rock team there on the side of Ikora. And with the help of that Delphox, they should be able to get Epe here. It's going to be pretty tough, but blown to bits. And that's going to be it. The bottom goal zone, it's going to be some easy points on the side of High Five. But of course, this top lane, they've got to protect this top goal zone. But I think that's just going to be it. These points are just going to be easily dunked. And even Chobo sticks around, and I think he's going to be easily knocked out here as well. Questionable plays from No-Show.
And what have No-Show unleashed out of High Five? Yes, No-Show did win that first point, but High Five, they say, you know what, you want us to go back to our usual comfort picks? Sure, we'll give it to you overall. And they are just looking phenomenal, and they just scream confidence in every single move that they go. And now that you've kicked off that Snorlax, you have a bigger problem at hand. Ikura is going to be zoning them off again.
Oh, so worried about Epe. Luckily, he didn't get blown up. But look at this, though. Xingdi putting out some big damage numbers onto Sal. Sal needs so much healing. The Blissey, luckily, is with these soft-boiled eggs. But is it going to be enough? No, they just get blown up. That's it. With Sal out of the picture and with just Epe, there's really nothing you're going to do to be able to get that Reggie steal. No-Show are getting rolled over in this matchup. High Five are mad.
I didn't really expect this. I mean, I'm starting to become pretty speechless about it. I mean, the whole idea of No-Show is to really draw them in for those team fights. And it seems like he did this.
Yep.
86 points. That's about good enough because they're about to prepare for that Rayquaza. But are they going to be prepared? BKZ also goes in for the backup of his own. And Sal's already being spotted out. Like, this is go time. And they're doing Rayquaza. This is not the time to chase Urshifu. We gotta get back in line.
Oh, but look at this. I think Blossom is going to be the first Pokemon KO'd. Really nice rock team prevents him from getting out as well. There's going to be the Bliss assist. Oh, Fireworks is thrown down as well. This is going to limit a lot of the movement in the back lines. They looks like they're going to lose the Lucario. Unfortunately, has to go away. Epe is out of the picture, but look at this. 3 Pokemon are out of the picture here for No-Show. Now it's down to 1. It's just going to be Epe. Can he maybe get this miraculous steal? No, he will not. It's going to go into High Five. No-Show, I just don't see them being able to stop these points from being scored. This, I think this is going to be 1-to-1 here, Contra.
It has to be. And they're basically pushing it into game tree. High Five just showing full force retaliation on the second game. And No-Show, they don't really have enough to even peel off this Crustle. I don't believe we've seen it being knocked out throughout the course of the battles. And now Sal, just look at this Tyranitar slowly going down.
Oh, goodness.
And that's going to fall in the hands of the Elagos, and they will continue to put in more and more points. 535 for the time being. And you see the Cider dancing all around. No-Show, they have nothing to do to defend.
And that's going to be it. I think this is 909 points on the side of High Five. They're still scoring points. They've got another one.
Is it going to be 1,000 by the end of it?
They
got 15 seconds though.
They're close. I don't know if they're going to be able to get that 1,000. I just, unless Delphox, 20 points? That might be it. That might just tip them over to the 1,000 mark, and I think they might just have it. But High Five, they are mad. They want to bring this to a game 3. They're saying No-Show. Game 1 was an accident. We are now here to officially play, and I am actually scared about this Game 3 for No-Show. 1,007 points.
I believe this is the very first 1,000-pointer that we're seeing here from East Asia, and everybody will really have to bid the high score what High Five have just set on the table. You know, like, Game 1, it was a flawed execution on their part where they had this huge Garchomp that was scaling so huge, but it was being stopped by First Blossom. This time around, it's like, okay, we're all pretty mad about, the way that they've countered us. They banned my Snorlax. You know what? Ikura's got a secret weapon.
Yeah, they definitely have a really nice secret weapon. It was really annoying actually for No-Show because you have to constantly be wary of where these rock tombs are going to be. It was so good at preventing the melee Pokemon as well on the side of No-Show from really being able to do anything. There were multiple times where I saw Blossom and even Epe were just getting blocked by the rock tomb, and they were just like, well, we can't really move anywhere. We're sort of stuck against the wall. And they just got wailed on because if you look at High Five, a lot of their damage dealers were they at least had some range to work with. They weren't also being hindered by their own rock tombs. Like, this is the really cool stuff that you can do, especially with Crustle. I'm really glad that we're starting to see High Five showcase this Pokemon. But going forward, though, I don't know if it's still going to continue to be this very niche pick that you whip out every now and again, or maybe teams are going to maybe start experimenting with the Crustle and say, like, hey, he might not be able to provide certain things that other defenders can do, but I think we can do some pretty interesting stuff with Rock Tomb.
Yeah, and when we look at the way that Ikura plays this Crustle, it forces teams to really commit to those battles that they had. And High Five definitely does love a good challenge where every single team fight, we see ZZ Ray is always in that position where he will just naturally dish out damage to whoever's over on the front line. Sure, early game was a little bit of struggle where this time around, like, I felt like BKZ really got lucky over the top side where they were having a little bit of that contest, but EP as well, I mean, he had that window of opportunity. There was that spawn of Altares coming up, and instead he's like, okay, maybe I'm going to hit that level and still do a lot more. And then the fights kept on going, especially over on that top lane, to the point that on this Regirock attempt, this is where Ikura shines best.
Yeah, exactly. It's like in these 4-on-4 in this case, just the fact that you have these X scissors to catch out Pokemon, to have the Rock Tomb as well to prevent Pokemon from escaping or to block those exit routes, it puts a lot of pressure onto No-Show because now they're sort of playing High Five's game, right? High Five is dictating whether or not, hey, you can walk here, you can't, we've got Pokemon blocking your way, you don't have this free movement, and so what are you going to do about it? Because you can't break Rock Tomb, like, it's there.
All you can do is just hit that eject button if you have it.
You Rock Tomb the goal zone, you can't move away from it as No-Show. We saw multiple times like Ikura just constantly throwing it down onto the goal zone, and No-Show just had no escape route. They had to fight into High Five.
That's right, and Ikura, the moment he pops the Unite move, I mean, he's got this
shield
huge
for days.
shield for days, and supplemented with the Elder Goss, I mean, like, you could go on and on.
Yeah, I think Wushan, he did a fantastic job healing this game. I think he did about 80,000 healing alongside the Blissey. So he was also a pretty big factor into whether or not High Five was able to sustain during these battles as well. Because when you go up against a Tyranitar, a lot of the time you can't rely on shielding because he is able to go through the shielding, right? He's actually burning down your health, not the shields. He can bypass it, and so it does cause a lot of issues for these shielding Pokemon. So having a healer in the back line to make sure that Sal doesn't just burn all your shielded Pokemon down, it really makes those fights long and drawn out. And you can already tell that High Five, they just had the advantage this game. They weren't invested in just a single Pokemon for damage, whereas for No-Show, it was really all in Sal. They had Epe as that backup damage, but just to have two Pokemon dish out the majority of your damage, you're basically putting all your eggs in the basket.
Yeah, literally, and Blissey only has so many eggs to get at the same time. So now that we're going into a draw, like there is a Pokemon that I really want to highlight where both teams have been able to secure for themselves. That Delphox definitely is giving them a whole lot of value. I mean, other than cutting it off the heel, the damage has been pretty much immense. So it really would force them into a situation where if you do commit to that team fight, you really have to respect that Delphox a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So it also it is a Pokemon that you need a solid composition to revolve around the Pokemon itself. So I wonder if it's going back on the hands of No-Show. What could be actually different, or could we still see what High Five has offered back in the first game? Are they going to be courageous enough to attempt
another crazy draft?
Yeah, another crazy draft.
I mean, it really depends on High Five up until this point, because I think looking at the leaderboard standings, I think High Five are almost promised at this point that first seed. So I think it depends like whether or not they want to end the tournament, or at least the first phase of the tournament, with wins all across the board. Now, of course, if I was them, you'd want to be safe. You want to make sure you win that match. I kind of feel like they might still go for something very strange and very fancy to close out the series, but I don't think they're going to go to the extent of game one where it's like a very out there draft. But also then again, we saw in game one, I think the main issue with that draft was just an executional error at probably the most important time in the game.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like it didn't work. They still made it work. It was just sometimes you lose the most important battle and there's nothing you can do about it after that.
True enough. And as for No Show, I believe they are the only team right now that's
So
capable
far, yes.
to actually stop High Five to go on an undefeated streak. Sure, we have one more week to go, but when we take a look at what's at hand here, I think like this could be pretty much the last run for High Five already.
Yes, I do believe this is literally the last game for High Five for the entirety of that first phase. So after this, I don't think we're going to see them next week, but we are going to see the rest. Oh, actually, is it there? I could be wrong. Either this is going to be the last series or next week will be the last series. But I mean, at this point, they're almost guaranteed first seed. I think they were at 9 points, which means they've done 3 series. So I think this is the last
And they've just
one.
added one more point onto it
Yeah,
as well.
they've at least guaranteed that 1 point, right? So they're now sitting pretty at 10 points. I think if we look at the brackets, it might be almost impossible for any team to catch up. I say almost because we kind of don't know. You know, sometimes you get some crazy things, new patches happen, and then a team just suddenly awakens. And then you're like, oh, hello.
Hello.
Yep, so High Five, this is literally their last match for the entirety of this first stage.
That's right. And as for No Show's run, I mean, looking back at some of the matches that they had, they've won Eternity, but went on a close series against T2. Of course, a very formidable opponent, where this match actually matters a whole lot more for No Show as compared to High Five in terms of stakes, because the moment that they win this series and then they look forward to the next one, which they have yet to play Secret Ship, they do stand a solid chance. So if they do win the series today, then next week itself, they can even go up to the point to secure a second place finish.
Well, that's, yeah, so if they can beat High Five, I'm not saying they can't, but I think if we look at the odds in general between these two teams, High Five definitely have the advantage there. It's a guaranteed second seed here for No Show if they can win this series. I don't think there's any team that can catch up to them now. But that's the question. Can they win this next series? And I think there is maybe the possibility. And then, heck, how about this? Let's say No Show wins the series. That's going to bump them up to 7 points. If they win the series next week as well, that's going to tie them with High Five.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we could be in a pretty interesting situation on who gets that first seed, Contra. So it's actually pretty intense. But the question is whether or not No Show can actually snatch this win away from High Five. And I think with what we saw, I think there is a possibility. But it also comes down to whether or not No Show can find that opportunity in this next game. Is High Five going to give them an opening for a comeback again?
If that's going to be the case, if High Five have calculated this correctly, I don't think there's more shenanigans. They should play like what they did on the past round. Score another 1,000-pointer if they will. I mean, that was as standard as the standard draft gets in the current recent matters, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like they're still going to throw a little bit more of that curveball towards No Show, just to show them, you know, like, we are a team to be respected, though, you know, we may not be playing in that WCS 2022.
I mean, every team, I think, here deserves to be respected, right? Because 4 of them represented their regions at Worlds last year, which is an admirable task already, right? Because they're basically the best teams in their region. And then you have High Five, best team in Taiwan, and they have proven that they are not to be laughed at. You know, this is a team that is terrifying. But of course, we do have our first set of bans here already. We're going to see the Mew and Snorlax banned out, and already High Five prioritizing the Delphox. I think this is a given. You cannot give away the Delphox to No Show. They've proven that having it, especially in that first game, proved to be too much. And No Show, again, going to consistently go back for these 2 Pokemon. I mean, Blossom, he has made Slowbro work in the past, so of course this makes sense. Also getting that Blissey. I think this is the bread and butter for No-Show. Now there's a question, what are they going to pair up these two Pokemon with? Are they going to go for another defender, or are they going to actually pump into some really big damage dealers for this third game? But for High Five, they're going to go for the usual cast. Scyther, Urshifu. I want to see whether or not they decide to pull out the Water Urshifu, because I would love to see it.
Yeah, like, especially now with the buff is very much viable, but with No-Show this time amping up the damage numbers of what High Five has offered on the past game, it was a triple tread, and I don't think it's going to be any of these list of Pokemon. Glaceon, possible.
Ikora.
I believe Ikora is just going to stay the same. Nothing much have changed this time around. They managed to snatch the Delphox. I mean, they have the Delphox in the past game as well. So No-Show, they really have to decide what do they do with this, because now they finally get that access to the backlines, and they should be able to eliminate this Delphox when it comes down to the battles, and then have a smoother cruise. But keep in mind though, Shingdi as well as BKZ, they have been on point. So you need to also watch out of what the front line has to be, and AP decides, you know what, I'm just going to play this arena, I'm just going to catch anybody out, and if they don't respect me enough, I'm just going to kick them with my Queen's Ascendant.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I really like this draft coming out from No-Show. You've got two Pokemon that can really dive into the backlines if necessary. They're both rather sustainable as well. You don't really need to lean so much on that Blissey. I'm curious to see if this is actually going to be that Safeguard or the soft-boiled Blissey, because once you know what kind of Blissey you're looking at, then we can see what's the play style No-Show is going to be aiming for. Now, for Sal to be on this Greninja, I think there's a lot on his shoulders in this game, right? He has to make sure he doesn't get caught by either of those burst heavy Pokemon on the side of High Five. He needs to be very elusive, maybe even dive into the backlines himself and start pressuring someone such as Wushan, right? If you can get rid of that Eldegoss from the picture, you've removed basically all the sustain on the side of High Five. The only other sustain you really have is actually that Scyther, but that's only for Scyther, right? He can only heal himself.
And I guess like that's the reason why he's playing on the Crystal again, where sure you can be playing that Serena, I could still disrupt your combos from chaining. You could land a couple of stomps, that's just about it.
Yeah.
But so long as you stay within that fight, High Five, they're just gonna out-trade them eventually. But things are looking pretty solid for No-Show to start things off with. They're getting a little bit more EXP. They're focusing too much on First Blossom. Let's see if they can take it out for the time being, but Epi now being bombarded and might just be the first Pokemon to fade.
Oh, the
and
grip up!
Eventually focus, but this will eventually be a trade, and they still heal just in the nick of time.
Oh,
it's a
man.
double going in for BKZ.
They couldn't. This is a fight that you cannot afford to lose, right? This is especially because it's a BKZ Urshifu that you're giving this experience to. So the fact that they lost that battle, it's very unfortunate. I think it was very ballsy for No-Show to do this as well, because you need to guarantee EP the evolution. And with Shingdi here as well, if they can get the KO on the side, that'll be huge, but he just snatches the Citrus Berry away, and this top lane is just getting demolished.
So
High Five.
quickly. I mean, this is just 1 minute and a half, and we're already seeing, I mean, 40 over points, sure, that's quite the given after winning those trades, but them slowly withering down No-Show, this is a little bit too painful for them to recover from, but still, there is a little bit more of that wiggle room. They should be able to stabilize. But look at First Blossom already hitting the eject button and couldn't really run away from the grasp of this Scyther.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too, because he's not going to have that for the next, what 90 seconds, I believe.
Sal.
Now, Sal, he did try to trade the jungle because, of course, you had Shingdi in your own central area, want to get experience yourself. Sal is unfortunately going to go down to the Crystal. I mean, he's doing the best that he can. He really needs to hit that Greninja before he can really do anything. And so, because he's sort of being slowed down by the roaming of Shingdi, it really prevents what No-Show can do during the laning stage, right? Like, you don't have a central area Pokemon that can really assist the side lanes. You have to do everything by yourself, and so you have to deal with this Scyther on your own, and everyone else is suffering because of this. But thankfully, No-Show, they're not completely lost the lanes. They still have a way of coming back. Serena has evolved. Sal has finally hit that level 7. He's maybe thinking of rotating into the top lane, but he has to be careful, because if he gets caught, just like from that X-Scissor, he might actually regret his decision-making here, but luckily they're making this comeback happen. 2 for 1. They did lose the Greninja, but they did get 2 Pokemon in the process, so it's not too bad. It could have been better in that top lane.
Yeah, Shingdi immediately spots him out the moment that you said he got look out, but Shingdi was left with so little HP that he has to back away, but they have been able to regroup on that Regi set, so they would still be able to at least scale into the proportions that they need. First boss
Can they
already
get
on
the
the way.
steal?
I don't think so.
Beautiful play. I mean, Ikura has just been so masterful on this Crustal. He's used the Rock Tomb to keep Pokemon zoned away, X-Scissor as well, just to make sure that they can't jump past them. Looks like Greninja actually trying to go for the full committal, will not get the KO onto Xingdi. That is massive, and now Blissey having to run away. This is safeguard Blissey as well, so there's going to be no heals. There's only so much you can do, and the goal zone goes down. And Epe single-handedly trying to have to defend this top push by himself. Got to be so careful because look at how quickly his health is going down. He's going to try and go for the fight. He will get the knockout onto BKZ. That is massive. Having to go for the full Unite committal, unfortunately, does go down as Xingdi does go for the rotation. But Epe, I think that was really the best you can do there.
Yeah, at least getting something back in return, but he's also giving a little bit more of that EXP back towards Xingdi as well. There is an option where he could try to run away, but of course, he's at such a low health already. So, High Five, they're just having pretty much a lot of EXP to work with, and now Regieleki won't be contested by No-Show. They're being kept very, very busy where they could easily break open the goal zone. But here comes No-Show arriving to the scene.
Yeah, No-Show gonna have to try and knock out some of these Pokemon, but they've already lost 2, 3. It's just down to these two, and they're actually zipping into the battle and being knocked out. It's a full team wipe for No-Show, and they didn't even need BKZ. He was scoring in the bottom lane all by himself. It's gonna be a free Regieleki to High Five. No-Show are just gonna have to go back to their central area, knock out some of these wild Pokemon and level up, but so far, High Five are just looking so dominant in this series.
It's just ridiculous, right, on how good they are. Like, their execution is so clean. Even up against No-Show, one of the top dogs of the tournament, as we've seen them perform against the rest with pretty much amazing results. But against High Five, it felt like they were defenseless. Like, Epe didn't really get to play as smoothly as intended on this Pokemon that he had picked for himself, where
no steal.
Serena had nothing really to offer, and No-Show coming so late to the scene, you're not going to be expecting to catch him off.
Sal has to be so careful. Oh, he just got spotted out there by BKZ. He's got to get out of here. Bliss assist just to make sure he's got the shielding there. They will hopefully get this counter knockout onto the Urshifu. Sal still alive, almost being taken out by BKZ. He will constantly be shielded with the safeguard. They actually used the Slowbro Unite there onto Xingdi, and they will successfully knock him out, but this Crustal is now turning into a problem, holding them off. Beautiful fireworks they're thrown down by Z-Ray, and he's going to start taking all the Pokemon out. They will eventually win that fight, but it didn't come with... I mean, they did lose Pokemon in the process, so some experience did change hands, but I mean, if you're High Five, you're just happy you were able to be the ones to end the battle.
Yeah, like, No-Show, the moment that they lost the Reggie, they shouldn't be staying put anyways. They saw an opportunity to catch BKZ as well.
I think they had to, though. But if you just leave, you've wasted time walking there. You get no experience walking back to a central area, so they kind of felt forced to engage in this battle. And especially when you're behind in Pokemon Unite, sometimes it makes sense to maybe full commit into a battle. Yes, you might get knocked out ultimately, but if you can get some knockouts, the comeback experience can be really crucial, especially with how important it is going into that late game. Now, this battle here is going to be very interesting on the side of No-Show. They're trying to blow up First Blossom. They won't be able to get the jump there onto the Delphox, but it looks like they will get the knockout there onto the Scyther. Now, as long as Delphox remains alive in this battle, it might be okay, but look at this Aegis Slash chops them down, and this is going to be a big battle victory for No-Show. They will also get the Regieleki off of this.
And this is where they stand a fighting chance for the Rayquaza later on, where they finally has gotten just about enough of damage to start to deal with all of that situation. And for the fact that Ikura was nowhere to be seen in that team fight over the top end, as they give a little bit more of that priority onto that Registeel. But Ikura's very sole reason is to set this one up as he zones Chobo away. They won't be able to reach in time. No damage output, but Chobo couldn't land the last hit.
No
it will still belong to High Five.
Yep, no steal. Now we're down to 20 seconds before the Rayquaza spawns. Now here's the thing though, this is a really interesting choice by High Five. BKZ immediately goes down questionable decision for High Five to stick around after that. They really should have backed up, but I mean, he's down. At least they did create a little bit of space for Z-Ray and Xingdi to farm on their side of the map, because now Rayquaza is up. Both teams are ready to go, and I think everyone has their Unite move ready.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I mean, BKC has been overzealous for many times. Epe's looking to assassinate Xingdi, but the backup has arrived.
He's alone!
Ocean's going to be able to turn this one around for the team, and High Five takes out the Serena right before Rayquaza, and they're giving chase.
This is a really interesting choice for No-Show to want to fight into this. Fireworks gets thrown down, but look at this, Pokemon are melting like nobody's business. I think No-Show, they shouldn't have gone down there. Epe wanting to try and go for that back cap. It just horribly went wrong there for No-Show. Oh my goodness. I can understand wanting to maybe try to pressure that bottom goal zone, but sometimes you also need to be very wary of where your team is. Are they going to be close enough to reinforce you if you get caught out?
Oh, not like this. No-Show stood a fighting chance to the point that even when you are going to lose Epe, you still need to know what's at hand, where there is that Rayquaza online, where there is opportunity for, you know, Aegislash as well as the Greninja to do something about it. Now, High Five is just running away with the series. 669 points and more.
Free scores. I don't even know if there's a way for No-Show to catch up here. It's 825 to 181, and you've got 30 seconds left to make this comeback happen. And Pokemon are just fainting in their own base. You know, I think this might just be the nail in the coffin. High Five flexing their power, going into the series saying, hey, No-Show, that first game, that's on us, but these next 2 games are ours.
Yeah, and this time it's on EP as well. Just one minor mistake has erupted into High Five running away with the game again. Though you could also say that High Five, they've been dominant throughout the course of the series, and sure, a little bit of shakeup has happened, and No-Show still put up a great show nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, No-Show, I had expectations of this team going into the series, and I think they definitely met them for sure, right? I thought No-Show, out of all the teams in this in the tournament, at least for the East Asia section, I thought they were going to put up the biggest fight for High Five, and I mean, that game 1, I think that was probably the that was the best series we've seen in a High Five series. After that, though, I think High Five, they just decided we're going to play at 200%.
200.
And it just, this team looks next level after that. I'm kind of happy that No-Show did make Game 1 the way that it did, because now our eyes are opened, you know. High Five, we thought they were at the top of their game. They can go higher.
Yeah, and I wonder what's the ceiling, because on this second game itself, we see High Five scoring 1,009 points. This time, they've broke that barrier again. Score. And now it's, 1,045, right? Like, they just kept improving at the fly, where you don't really know what to expect anymore coming out of High Five. Now, when we go back into the drafts itself, like, I'm just really surprised that No-Show has given so much leeway to High Five from the second game onwards, where not only was the Cider being left available, but including the Urshifu, where No-Show was thinking, we don't really have to give it too much of a priority. But clearly enough, High Five's mastery on these 2 Pokemon are definitely top-notch.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of mastery, I kind of feel like in this game, if Sal had an easier early game, where he didn't have to worry about a Scyther roaming in his central area and him potentially getting knocked out in some of these battles, I actually think this could have been a much closer game. But unfortunately for him, you're going up against a Crustle with X-Scissor. You also have to be worried about just getting 2-shot by a Scyther, and hell, you have to make sure you don't get hit by a Wicked Blow, right, from the Urshifu. So there were just so many hazards for this Greninja that Sal just really struggled, and it kind of makes me think, like, what would have happened if we had a different central lane on the side of No-Show, where Sal would have been able to do a bit more for his team, because they didn't really have access to early game rotations, because Greninja, he's just not the best at it, right? Whereas Scyther, you hit a very early power spike. He's even quite deadly even before he hits that usual power spike. So I think going into this next series for No Show, at least for next week, it's something to explore. Is there a way that they're able to ensure Sal has that early game whilst also not cutting into their side lane budget, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. Then now that No Show have at least gotten 1 point secure out of that series, they do feel like there is a little bit of that safety net for them to at least get 1 more point out of their upcoming series to ensure that they are at the very least on the 2nd spot.
Yeah, so I think this is really the game-winning play here for High Five, right? Where they just caught Epee. No Show really, I think, no-showed in that battle. They came after Epee went down, and because everyone just really clumped up, the fireworks from Zero just doing so much work, blows up Greninja. I mean, the entire team went in flames, and they just, I think, convincingly lost that battle because they fought on High Five's terms.
Yeah.
High Five were the ones to determine where the fight happened. They had Ikura there using the Rock team to make sure that No Show didn't have free movement in that battle, and then there was just no way to dive the Delphox.
Yeah.
Right? As long as Z-Ray is up, I think the battles are more or less in High Five's favor.
And them dealing with the Crustle, it seems like it's a little bit too much of everything, which is why, like, when we get into the past couple of drafts, like, this Delphox priority is so valuable overall, where they rather even let go of potentially the Urshifu as well as Scissor, which, you know, there was that opportunity for No Show to get it maybe for Sal, maybe for Epee if he wants to.
Maybe.
So,
I'm just thinking, have we seen Sal play Scyther? Because I feel like Sal, up until this point, he's played some pretty interesting Pokemon. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he even played Central Area Decidueye, if I remember correctly.
yeah, he did.
But I'm not sure about Scyther, because if he doesn't play Scyther, or maybe he doesn't play that standard rotational mid Pokemon, maybe going in for next week, maybe start exploring with some options. You know, you kind of need to stabilize your side lanes.
That's true, and I think that there's overcommitment and maybe a little bit too much respect as well towards High Five, where they were really focusing on sustainability, where, okay, we understand that there's going to be a lot of damage output, so therefore it's been constant picks on Slowbro as well as that Blissey for the past 3 games. Nothing remains changed, and like and to complement this, you really needed that Delphox on your hand.
Yeah. I mean, I think up until this point, teams are going to have to start either fighting for that Delphox in the draft, or maybe just banning it outright and saying, like, hey, you can't have access to that Delphox. Because this Pokemon, we've seen what Delphox can do. And I'm really curious to see what would be the win rate for this Pokemon so far, because I think a lot of the teams that have picked it have been rather successful with it as well. It dishes out so much damage, has access to all this mobility, its Unite move is invaluable, and it has such ridiculously short cooldown. I've seen teams be able to whip out 4 to 5 Unites on this Pokemon. And so having access to a Unite that you can use to zone, to do damage with, to be able to even use as some kind of a slow in a battle, I think it's almost too versatile.
Yeah, and there's just so much of a safety net for him where it could easily just...
You can side lane it,
Yeah.
you can central area it,
And
you
it's
can
so
do anything
flexible.
with it.
Yeah, like, whatever resource, you know it's going over onto this Delphox anyways. But, you know, that was the conclusion of the whole series, just to show, you know, why High Five is such a revered team by the likes of Manu, that even on those interviews they were saying that don't turn a blind eye on them, though. You know, some of these regions like Japan as well as Korea usually scream one another, and then you have the champions of the Taiwan Open here finally showing to be the biggest challenger in the scene. So I wonder how it's gonna look like when they eventually have somebody pit up against them on the ACL.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, I'm excited to see these teams on LAN, most importantly, because then now we're going to be seeing this mix of regions, play styles, meta, and even picks, right? Like, some teams, we've seen them have these favorites that other teams aren't really exploring because it might just be their signature Pokemon. So I'm really curious to see who's going to make it to the LAN final for East Asia, because I think up until this point, we can say that High Five more or less confirmed their spot. There's no way they're going to run into a tiebreaker at all next week. But now's the question, who's going to get the second spot? Because second spot is determined by the gauntlet run. So even though a team might get that second seed for the gauntlet run, you still have to play for the spot. You are not guaranteed the LAN final.
That's right. And now let's take a look at the gauntlet run as we speak of it. So teams are now fighting for their placement throughout the round robins that they're playing for the past couple of weeks, and we're about to conclude it by the end of next week to see how the seeding is going to look like. The 4th and 5th seed will have to start the run at the bottom, and whoever wins will face off against the third seeding team. And on the next day itself, whoever wins that series will face off against second, and the moment that they win, they already qualify to the ACL finals alongside with the first seed.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's not to say that the first seed isn't going to play. They're still going to play the winner of that final series to determine the seeding for the LAN, okay? That's not the end of seeding. Got a lot of seeds for this tournament. But I do believe we are going to actually have a break here as we get ready for our next and final matchup of the day. So, of course, Pokemon trainers, as usual, if you need to, maybe go grab your snacks, drinks, toilet, maybe even get a quick round of Pokemon UNITE in before we jump into our final series of the night. But yeah, we'll see you all in 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Meiji Almond Chocolate boasts the highest quality, only attainable by Meiji. Our professional staff painstakingly pick out each almond with their eyes and hands. We give our uniform-shaped almonds a tantalizing aroma through direct flame roasting. For the perfect combination with almonds, we stick to the golden ratio with specially blended chocolate. Meiji Almond Chocolate is made with our devotion and passion, which have remained unchanged over the past 60 years. Meiji almond chocolate boasts the highest quality only attainable by Meiji. Our professional staff painstakingly pick out each almond with their eyes and hands. We give our uniform-shaped almonds a tantalizing aroma through direct flame roasting. For the perfect combination with almonds, we stick to the golden ratio with specially blended chocolate. Meiji almond chocolate is made with our devotion and passion, which have remained unchanged over the past 60 years.
Welcome back, trainers, and you are currently watching the Pokemon Unite Asia Champions League East Asia. My name is Contra. Here alongside with me is Danley. We've just concluded our amazing series between No-Show as well as High Five, with High Five securing themselves another 3 pointers. I believe they've already solidified themselves at #1, and it is a good time to celebrate. And you know, we had a little bit of time to wind down for a couple of bit, and you know what we found? Packs of Meiji almond chocolate.
The actual Meiji almond chocolate.
That's right, and it's amazing. I mean, like, we've been talking about it from the past week, that we love to get our hands on it.
Here we go.
And you know what? Let's open them up and try them on stream.
Yeah, so we actually did have, like, this actual chocolate inside. Okay, these are not just boxes. Even got the plastic on it. Contra, do you want to show them one of the almonds?
Yeah, it's right.
Sorry,
here.
it's a chocolate almond.
Chocolate almond.
Yeah, so they're massive.
And the amazing thing about this, right? Like, Danley has brought up the point where, oh, if you take a look closely, it has that golden ratio for a very good reason. Show them why. I mean...
Okay, so as you can see on the box, they're pretty big. They're very big almonds.
It's the actual size.
So this is a law in Japan where it has to be the exact same size as the product on the box. And so as you can see here, right, on the box, I don't know if you guys can see it, there's like a one that's bitten, I guess, and with the layer of chocolate. Is it right? Contra, do you want to try? Do you want to, like, try it? I want to see how thick the chocolate is, because if it's... Did you just eat the whole thing?
I can't help it. I can't help it.
Okay. Hang on.
You go ahead, Danley. I mean, it's too good. It's too good.
He just ate the whole thing.
And the thing about it is, you could taste the roasted almond. It's carefully handpicked by the guys back in the factory, and they've been able to select the perfect ratio. And on top of that, they also roast each one of them perfectly, so you could basically taste every bit of it.
It's exactly the same. Like, even the picture with the half almond, it's exactly the same. Man, I love this, but it's delicious. Truth be told, these are delicious almonds. Highly recommend these. They're amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, overall, I let you enjoy for the time being. But of course, we have another series to prepare for. And therefore, you guys definitely want to stick around for this one, where we will be seeing a whole lot of all these teams vying for the top spot, alongside with what we've already seen. High Five winning that series. They're going to be having themselves the first ticket into the ACL Grand Finals in Malaysia.
It's really exciting for High Five, right? Because I think for a lot of us viewers, we've followed this team since the very beginning, guaranteed that top spot. I want to know who's going to be their opponent in that final for the second stage, right? Because they guaranteed that spot. Is there anyone that can beat them before we go to the LAN? We will find out in just a second though, but as we talk about them, let's move over to our next series of the day, which is going to feature our next set of teams, Contra.
That's right, and of course, with that being said, we do want to see how much points they could basically put back on the table for this one, as we definitely have all these teams that could even potentially tie in the bracket. Now, T2 will fight against Secret Ship to make things different. And I believe that they're on a really good pacing here. But Secret Ship, if they do win this series, that tie could possibly happen.
It could, right? Because we're not really out of the woods for a lot of these teams. There's still the potential of seeing some of these ties happen next week. And for anyone that's wondering what's going to happen with ties, we are going to play tiebreaker games if a tie occurs. So that's going to be a best of one series on the final day of the first stage of the tournament. So let's take a look at the teams before we jump into our second series of the day, Contra. Of course, it's T2 versus Secret Ship. And on the side of T2, we're going to have a quick look here at Ruin. His favorite Pokemon to play is Alolan Ninetales. And the player to watch out for is Abuyan. And his talent is speed eating noodles.
And now he's finally meeting Abuyan in the same matchup. So I wonder how much have they really prepared for it. So
yeah.
Speed eating noodles, that depends what kind of noodles. So are you talking about ramyun or what exactly? If it's going to be spicy, man, you gotta take it slow, my friend.
Yes.
Unless that's his hidden talent, right? Like you can
spicy noodles.
Any type of ramen or noodles, then well, hats off to you, Ruin.
Oh my goodness. I mean, if you can speed eat spicy noodles, I think that's a talent on its own. So, Ruin, best of luck. I'm really keen to see like what we're going to be expecting in this matchup because of course you're playing up against your idol. Is it going to be like the jitters? Is it going to maybe inspire him to play better? Because sometimes players do better under pressure, and then of course vice versa. Maybe you feel a little bit too pressured and it pulls you down. But we are going to have a quick look here at Pew on the side of Secret Ship. He loves Alolan Ninetales and Venusaur, and he says, watch out Renaissance, we are getting our revenge.
A throwback into the WCS, it seems. Secret Ship are definitely well on their way, but they still have to fight through all these rounds to ensure that they have a smooth cruise in the gauntlet. Now, we've seen a whole lot of Pew, what he has delivered, and this player can just come in with different multitudes of Pokemon types to bring on the table. So I wonder what will we be getting for today out of Secret Ship.
You know, Contra, it's only occurred to me. I wonder if there's any of these players that have come in. So just for our viewers, if you're wondering, for the player trivia, we do ask the players for this information, anything about their hobbies and stuff like this. I wonder if someone's filled in their favorite Pokemon with just some other Pokemon to maybe throw another team off and say like, hey, I like playing these weird Pokemon, but maybe they don't play them at all. Maybe they just like how they look. Who knows?
Well,
and they're just like,
but then bring up all the legendaries if that's the case, right?
We actually did have something like that, but I think that was a miscommunication. But that's fine. All right, final match here, Contra. Oh boy.
And of course, let's take a look at the table once more as we get ourselves prepared for what could potentially happen. So T2 takes on Secret Ship. Currently, Secret Ship has less games being played out as compared to all the other teams, where on the following week, they will have to go up against No Show. So they can potentially go up to a total of, I believe, 9 points if they do win every single respective match. Meanwhile, as for T2, this will also be their third match respectively, so there's still ample of opportunities to eventually chase up to the current number 2 seed, No Show.
Yeah, so I think if anything, if you're Secret Ship, you have to come into the series gun blazing. You need to win it. Ideally, they get that 2-0, but even if it's a 2-1, I think you're going to be pretty happy. You just got to make sure that you catch up to that middle section, right? Make sure you can somehow squeeze yourself into that third spot, because if you're 4th and 5th, it really doesn't matter where you wind up, right? Because you have to play that first set of games anyway. It's just trying to get that 3rd seed to make sure that you can skip that first matchup and then have to play one less series going for that 2nd spot.
That's right, and even though these teams here may be fighting neck and neck, even if you squeeze 1 point back and still suffer the loss, it's going to be a huge difference maker on who's going to be on the top 3 of the standings.
Yeah, it'll be huge for honestly, it's going to be huge for Secret Ship if they can actually 2-0 this, because they'll bump themselves up to 4 points, and then now T2 are pressured to have to win their next matchup. So there's a lot on the line for these two teams, especially in this week's matchup. Whereas for T2, if they win, they're gonna actually get ahead of No Show and possibly get that 2nd spot. So guys, a lot is happening this week. Wins really matter, and I wouldn't say even just wins. 2-1 scores. If you're going to lose in style, get at least 1 game. push it to 3 games. You need that point now.
And the push starts now.
Yes.
Let's get ourselves into the
Let's
draft.
go!
And we will see if Secret Ship will have a lot of surprises against T2, where this is probably one of the most exciting rivalries that we have from the WCS Japan region. After all, I mean,
Contra.
Secret Ship definitely have proved themselves, and they won that challenge up against Renaissance, and they have to ensure that they win this match, if ever the case.
And Contra, we also have to remember, these teams likely scrim each other on a regular basis. So there's a good chance that they know each other like the back of each other's hands. So, you know, if there's a time to squeeze out the secret strats, it's time to do it now. And we're going to see the standard bans here, Mew and Scyther. That's been a very popular pick so far, but we've seen a lot of Slowbro love, and Clefable is going to finally make an appearance today. This is the new patch Clefable that has that had Moonlight buff, so we're going to be seeing a lot more healing coming out of this Pokemon. But really good reactions here from Secret Ship. They actually have picked up the Delphox for themselves. This is going to severely reduce the amount of healing output from Haruta. Blastoise is coming out on Secret Ship. They're like, boys, we need to put it in. We need the cannons. Load the cannons. We are here to win. Let's go.
You take a look at the T2 lineup. Sure, you have a Machamp to try to match with the Urshifu later on, but you also have the Gardevoir who says, okay, if you're going to full commit or just going to bring more magic damage output to the table with this Gardevoir. And Hobachi will just fight to lurk around and see if he can basically score as much points possible back to the T2 side.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Abuyan's going to do on this Blastoise, because up until this point, we haven't seen Hydro Pump and Surf at all. It's been mostly the Spin to Win Blastoise, which is the Water Spout and I think it's Rapid Spin. I love that build on Blastoise because it is such a nuisance to deal with. This Pokemon is naturally tanky, has reasonable damage output, and you can actually chase the back squishy Pokemon if you're going for the Spin to Win build, because you get bonus movement speed, and it forces your frontliners to have to turn around and deal with the Blastoise. You can't just let him walk all over your Gardevoir, for example. So it's interesting to see how they're going to actually play this out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to point out. So that can deal with Gardevoir, but is it enough, though, to deal with a Dodrio? And therefore...
Actually, Dodrio, I think he will struggle as well again, assuming Blastoise Squirtle at this point has a good start, because one of the major setbacks for this Pokemon is the fact that it's actually quite experience heavy. It evolves at level 9, which is very late into the game. I mean, that's... Tyranitar evolves at level 9. Charizard evolves at level 9. So can Secret Ship feed this Squirtle?
Yeah, it definitely will take quite a while. That's why you see a little bit more of that babysitting happening over on the top end of the lane, where Lizzie will also have to ensure that they gather as much of a wealth of experience to be able to match up against Hobachi later on. Both have pretty much the same idea. They're looking for that golden timing to strike as the Atara does spawn over on top lane.
And they saw Liz. That was really good scouting there, and the fact that he used the Tri-Attack to slow them down, that prevented Secret Ship from getting a jump on any of these Pokemon. Great play from T2.
Yeah, and Obian.
I love this. I actually really like that they're giving this over to the Squirtle, because he needs this experience, and he evolves to Wartortle after this as well.
Oh, Hobachi already landing a couple of blows, and Gakubari is definitely going to be able to hold on as they pick up a couple of Citrus Barrier. Oh, Heavy Slam connects onto 2, but you won't expect PU to be able to offer too much damage for the time being. I mean, it still takes a while for the Delphox to come into effect.
Hibachi is going to be a big pain in the backside, and he gets the steal, I believe. So great stuff, denying it from Abuyan. You really have to do this, especially if you're noticing your opponents giving that experience over to the Wartortle. Deny him that level 9 as long as you can, because that means Hydro Typhoon will not be on the field. Now, both teams, they did try to tussle for the birds. Luckily, it's not going to be too of a knockout-heavy engagement, I suppose. But this is a win for Ruin, because he's is able to just farm for free in that bottom lane. You really want to make sure you get that Gardevoir up as fast as possible, because you want her to be just dealing all that damage from the back lines. And of course, if you can get her Unite move up on the field as well, that's a really threatening move you have to worry about if you're Secret Ship, because if you look at Secret Ship, a lot of their Pokemon really want to group up. You cannot really afford to group up against a Gardevoir if you get caught by the Singularity.
Yeah, which is why this Dodrio seemed to be a pretty effective pick into this matchup as well. Like, you want to back cap? Sure, no problem. Get them committed to the fight, and he'll do the rest,
Ooh.
right? And, oh my!
Again.
Yaku is just getting single-handedly zoned off and will be knocked out. This is Blissey. Faints for the time being, while the rest will contest for that Registeel.
Second time that they've denied that experience to the Wartortle, so he's actually stuck at level 7. He will come in though with the Rapid Spin, but beautiful Singularity, but is enough? No! It's actually still going to be taken thanks to that Wartortle. Oh my goodness, Secret Ship coming up victorious in that little skirmish, and they didn't lose any Pokemon while that happened.
Oh, Booyan literally, like you said, goes and spin it to win it, and now they just didn't really have much to do. T2, they didn't even get a single pick off. The Snorlax was in the way, so they couldn't really move too far forward. So back to a farming fiesta for the timing. But though Secret Ship has won some of all these trades, T2 have sneaked in 112 points for the past 12 minutes. So they really have to amp up the firepower if they need to get things done. Haruda, though, going for the challenge.
Whoa, they won't be able to survive though, and it looks like they're able to even keep the Marchant alive. Fantastic backup there from T2. They get another KO as well. That's going to be both the Urshifu and the Blissey, which means this is going to be a nice, easy Regieleki for T2. If they got the KO there onto Haruda, that would have at least been a nice little consolation knockout. But, you know, when you're going up against so much healing and sustain, it really, really makes it a risk to try and go for those counter knockouts.
Yeah, and Secret Ship, I mean, they are not really concreting all too well, but the Delphox has finally arrived at the scene, hoping not to be picked up. Oh, that was some huge damage onto Ajin as well as Ruin. But eventually, the precious amount, and Pew getting caught out!
You have to be so careful as a Delphox, especially if there's a Dodrio on the map, because this Pokemon can do so much damage, and it's so mobile as well that usually you can just outrun a lot of these skills, right? Because Delphox, it's mostly a skill you have to aim. It's not a target lock. But look at this though. Looks like there's going to be a cut off here with this Blastoise starting off with the spin. But here's the thing. Does T2 want to go into this battle? Deep into the fight though. Urshifu getting a big Unite just onto one Pokemon. They eliminate the Slowbro. Singularity goes down, but they didn't really get to do much with it. And now, triple trample is going to catch that Delphox, but is he going to keep going? He is a little bit too low to feel comfortable. And look at this, Abuya just spinning in the front lines. T2 are too scared to move forward because this Blastoise is just sitting on top of them.
And they're just getting picked off one after another. Obian slowly dropping
Hydro
down
Typhoon
health
is
bar.
available. He will use it to slow down the Slowbro. Luckily for this Clefable, he did actually get stunned. A nice steal though. Beautiful stuff coming in from T2. So luckily this is going to be a win for them.
And these trades are not resulting in any form of points going back in favor of Secret Ship. And as they slowly get withered down, like, I felt like it's too much of an overcommitment coming in. They've already got Dodrio as well as what the Slowbro was in the forefront, but even despite that, they didn't really have that full attention being paid just to ensure that they secure that Registeel in hand.
Yeah, so it's also pretty disappointing for Secret Ship too, because you've committed your Hydro Typhoon. That is, I think in a standard game, you're only going to get about 2, maybe 3 Typhoons, depending on how quickly you can evolve. And so to use one of them and to not be able to get an objective, that's a pretty big loss. And also if you're T2, once you see the Hydro Typhoon down, you don't really have to worry about getting caught in one, right? So you can play a little bit more aggressively, especially with your frontliners. But it looks like Regieleki going to be a nice, easy take here for T2. This will force Pokemon back on the side of Secret Ship. And Arjun, okay, that was an unfortunate knockout.
Yeah, pretty concerning. And thankfully, it's not really win the window of the Rayquaza. We still have 1 more minute to go, while Yakubari is spotting out Hibachi's
Nice
Temple
play.
Run.
He says, you can't have these Pokemon, it's mine.
It's like, take it.
He just whipped out the the cafeteria tray? He's like, nah, it's all mine.
He just swooped it off the tray. I mean, this guy, it's just so fun to watch.
I love Snorlax, man. You can do so many funny things with that Pokemon. All right, we've got 30 seconds left before we see this Rayquaza spawn here, Contra. So I think, if anything, it's really going to come down to whether T2 can defend Rayquaza, or if you can get those crucial pickups around the Rayquaza pit, right? It's a defending game now.
That's right, and Secret Ship have designed this composition for this very sole reason of a team fight, so they really need to have a very flawless execution. Though, however, they've already prioritized the Reggie still, so they are forsaking a lot of positions
That's
over
an
on the mid
attack
area.
bonus as well. That is so scary. A attack bonus on this lineup that wants to be in your face and has a Hydro Typhoon. You have to be so careful if you're T2. This is now a balancing act of how they engage into this battle.
And they were already poking
Oh
out
my
Haruta.
goodness! Oh man, Haruta cannot afford to go down. Luckily they have the heals, but look at this though. Slowbro taking critical amounts of damage. Oh, okay, nice gravity. Right, they're able to zone out. Fairy Singularity still in the back pocket for this Gardevoir. They've got to be so careful and mindful of their movements. Both teams now going to reset. So far, no Unites have been used, but is it going to come down to a big Unite here?
Oh, the flanks are coming in from
The
Dario.
spin!
Haruta is trying to
Ooh.
look for a pickup, but they will arrive to scene to find Obuyan, and they will
Hydro
get the
Typhoon!
Typhoon on top of 3 members of T2, and things are slowly crumbling. But Secret Ship, they are battered and bruised. How much more can they left to offer? T2 somehow turns it all around.
And look at this, we have actually got Hibachi pushing back the Blastoise as well. But so far, if you're T2, just continue defending. You do not have to take this Rayquaza. It is down to Secret Ship, and Secret Ship have used most of their big Unites. The only one they have left really is on that Urshifu. And you're asking for a game-changing Urshifu Unite to win this game.
And now you know that
Oh, he's
this
used
Blastoise
it.
is not going to be able to do all too much, and he still gets out.
Oh
Haruta.
no! He's used the Unite, so now they just have to win a full frontal attack. But can they
35
afford
seconds.
to?
Can they do it?
I don't think they can. It might just be a little bit too late here.
Secret Ship, they're doing whatever they can necessary to just hold off T2, and none of them are even scoring those points. Obuya struggling inside of the pit, and he's going to be depleted after all. And by the end of it, the Rayquaza is still in the hands of T2.
Arjun's Moonlight. I think that was really what won this battle here for T2. The fact that they were able to constantly reset, have their lineup heal back up to full. It really, really made it difficult for Secret Ship to win this fight. Imagine if this was a different support Pokemon that didn't have the same level of healing output as a Clefable. You know, I think this would have actually maybe have been Secret Ship's game to win. The sustain was just too strong.
Yeah, and I felt like they were stretched a little bit to the moment that time is of the essence, where they are forcing that fight whenever it is necessary. And Obuyan, despite getting 3 members being caught out in that Hydro Typhoon, like by then, a lot of these members were all being spread apart, where you don't really get a good catch on Hibachi and Ajin. Just having that game-changing Unite to really turn things around, and T2 have brought it to a point that this is the very first time that we're seeing a Rayquaza left unfaded for the longest time possible, and Secret Ship didn't stand a chance. And but by the end of it all, when Secret Ship have withered down the Rayquaza, it still got snatched away because they didn't really have those Unites to work with.
Yeah, like that was the thing. A Secret Ship, they really blew all of their resources, all their Unites in that initial fight. I wonder if things would have been a little bit different if Obuyan was able to get a better Hydro Typhoon. He actually got a reasonable one that caught a lot of T2's Pokemon, but at the same time, his lineup wasn't really able to fully utilize and at least capitalize on that Hydro Typhoon, because it wasn't like Secret Ship were catching out T2. It was just everyone was going in full blown, full muscle, and there really just wasn't enough follow up to really make that Hydro Typhoon enough of a threat. And I also kind of feel pretty bad for Liz because this was a really tough game for that Urshifu, right? I mean, we saw the damage output there, only 26,000. And he wasn't even able to get any of those really big, wicked blows, right? We saw a couple here and there, but nothing like, wow.
Yeah,
that
I was
used to
expecting a
seeing.
little bit more impact coming in from the Urshifu as well. I think like Ruin definitely held them all the way back as well.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like T2 left him unchecked, and the amount of damage that this Gardevoir has dealt is off the charts. And I was just looking at how much damage was this Gardevoir taking. Apparently less than 10k. I mean, that's a really good telling sign that this is going to be a smoother cruise, especially when you have members of the side of T2 to hold the front line so well. I give that credit to Ajun as well as the Slowbro.
I was going to say Hibachi did a fantastic job getting a couple of those stray pickoffs throughout the battle, because he was just such a difficult Pokemon to deal with for Secret Ship. Like, their only real form of crowd control was, I think, reliably Snorlax. It's really difficult for Urshifu to even think or at least dream about catching a Dodrio. And then you have actually gone for the spin build on the Blastoise, right? Blastoise is really not the best Pokemon when it comes to dealing with something like that Dodrio. It's just too mobile. So I'm wondering, going into this next matchup, and maybe if Secret Ship are maybe expecting another Dodrio, maybe for Hibachi again, who knows, maybe they can swap players, are they going to maybe pick some Pokemon that have an easier time dealing with it, because it really, really made it difficult for them to be able to do anything.
Yeah, and I felt like the entirety of Secret Ship's
Look at this,
lineup
though.
is asking for a little bit of everything, but not really having a form of cohesiveness. This was the point where they were forced to pull off the fight, and there's not a point of a time where you see T2 were fully grouped in that essence where they still have double flank angles. You have Haruda jumping in to try to catch off not only Obuyan, but immediately inject all the way to the back to catch you off. So the resources of damage were already negated from this Delphox.
Yeah, and then, I mean, to not even have your Delphox be able to really use the stun time from Obuyan, because we also saw in that clip, this was a Bliss-assisted Hydro Typhoon. Like, this was a damage-buffed Hydro Typhoon, and it really just didn't do much in the damage department. I think Obuyan really did the best that he could, but when he Hydro Typhoon, I don't think he had access to Rapid Spin. I think it was still on cooldown. And so to be Bliss assisted and to also use Hydro Typhoon and not be able to follow up with the spin, it really, really impacted how much he was able to do in that fight. Like, ideally, I would have said, if you could, try and Bliss assist somebody else, but even then, if your Delphox is down, I think you really missed the mark with being able to get any damage boost.
Yeah, overall, I guess like they might actually consider drafting something that's a little bit more easy to execute, because it really requires a lot of teamwork to be able to put everything into this team fight basket, right?
Yeah, and it really felt like it was too Unite heavy for Secret Ship. Like, they really needed all their Unites to hit the mark, and a couple of them did, but ultimately it wasn't like the whole full-blown wombo combo win.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's all about timing as well, where everyone's got different cooldowns on some of all this, and you put up a really good point. How often do you see a Blastoise cast the Hydro Typhoon for more than 3 times?
Yeah, it's not a very... what's this word I'm trying to use? Disposable resource. It sounds bad, but like sometimes you've got, for example, the Fanciful Fireworks and Delphox. Like, that is, some would say, a disposable Unite, because you can use it so many times that you can use it whenever the situation occurs. Hydro Typhoon, you have to be very calculative about when you want to use it, because you don't know when's going to be the next time you can use it. You might even just have the 2 Hydro Typhoons, and if you play a game where you've got a Blastoise and he's not able to have either of his Unite moves be impactful, then you've really not been able to capitalize on the utility of that Pokemon. Because Blastoise, like, his big role is to just be that big disruptor.
Yeah, and I guess, like, even though there was a couple of team fights that he managed to win and also to steal a Reggie away, I guess, like, the rest of the team also really have to follow the calls of play, where sure, you have a couple of front lines to be able to hold out, but I think like the effectiveness of it is incomparable to what we saw in Pokemon's like, I think, of course, Snorlax being quite the priority, but it doesn't really chase away Pokemon's like Dodrio. It didn't really have that impact, especially when Lizzie was down.
I'm not going to hate on the Blastoise. I actually think that this was just a really great example of how to deal with the Blastoise, because they clearly, you can tell that they weren't really that afraid of the Hydro Typhoon. I mean, we're talking a lot about the Blastoise, but don't worry, because Game 2 is actually now ready. So let's jump into the draft here and see if we're maybe going to see a comeback or if it's going to be a 2-0 series. Contra, I'm really excited. Do you think it's maybe time to ban the Dodrio? Because I kind of feel like it was really impactful on the side of T2.
I think like there is going to be certain consideration, but I feel all in all, there is still other priority in terms of other Pokemon that you're leaving on the table, like Scizor Scyther is still left up, and neither of the teams actually...
It was banned, I believe.
Oh,
yeah, so
Scyther
Scyther was banned, and I think it was Mew as well. Yeah, those two were banned.
Then perhaps with that big difference, it could result into something that will be more effective for them. But instead, T2 opens up, hinting on that Mamoswine, but will consider to lock in the staple Slowbro.
Yeah, it's too good for
great,
Supercell.
Right? Like recently, we see a whole lot more love for the Bro, where in competitive, it's so valuable. And this time around, Secret Ship will still stick with the same sort of picks that they had, and perhaps just clean up on the act that they had.
I think they're probably going to fix up their front line, because I think last game they didn't really have the best way to deal with Dodrio. And of course, I think in this series you have to be anticipating like, hey, there could be a Dodrio. Let's make sure we've got some Pokemon that can possibly deal with it if we have one in this game. And Mamoswine, I think this is a really good Pokemon because you have to be so careful when you're approaching that Mamoswine. You have to be worried about getting frozen and whether or not it's going to be Ice Fang, or I think it's Icicle Crash, that's the other move. Both very lethal. If anything, I think Ice Fang is probably the scarier one out of the two, because if you get grabbed, he's just going to throw you back into his team, and it's going to probably be in the waiting arms of a Delphox. And Blastoise is coming back for a Booyah. I'm glad to see it. And Hibachi is going to be back on that Dodrio. So let's see if Secret Ship can fix what happened in that last game, because clearly they did a pretty good job with trying to reconfigure their draft. I do like the Eldegoss pick. I'm wondering what kind of build it is for Eldegoss.
Yeah, like this gives them a little bit more of that durability in terms of frontlining any form of that engagement as well, with not only the Eldegoss but the Mamoswine that can basically last quite some time in those battles where we saw that fight for Rayquaza took almost forever.
I mean, Rayquaza didn't even go down a Contra, so we'll see if we do get the knockout here, but it really comes down to Secret Ship. Can they tie this series up 1-1 and bring it to that third game? I think that's the biggest question we need to ask here. And of course, we jump into game 2 of this best of 3 series. It's our final best of 3 of the day. Secret Ship going to be down 1 game against T2. Can they make this comeback happen? They have to yet again deal with this Hibachi Dodrio, but let's see if they have the solution to this. And so far, it looks like they're just going to be sending the Abuyan solo in that top lane to try and get him as much experience as possible. But he's running into 2 Pokemon, so they're just going to score. All right, I think it's a stacking Blastoise, it seems.
Oh, that forces the eject button very early on from Ruin, and they could slowly capitalize on this situation where they will force to be play a little bit more defensive. Yeah. But of course, Secret Ship, you look at their roster of Pokemon, it does take quite a lot of scaling, where it needs 2 evolutions for most of them. So it will definitely be a little bit worrisome if they fall behind in the early stages, and therefore they press on whatever slight advantages in terms of position as they can. The only one that could actually have maybe a decent run for the time being is, of course, the Urshifu.
Oh, I wonder if they actually saw Liz there. I don't think they did. Oh, now they're going to show off. All right, so they now know Liz is here. They're focusing on these Swablu spawns. They want to try and get as much of the experience, but it doesn't matter. I think most of them just got swiped by T2. That's actually rather unfortunate.
Yeah, like the entirety of the camp being taken out, and now Booyah being caught out, and this is not the place to be.
Ooh.
He did manage to use the
eject button
just in the nick of time. Thankfully enough, nobody is going to be knocked out from that instant. But Yakubari's got to be pretty careful, because at any given point in time, when they do a little bit of switcheroo, this Dodrio could just turn their back. And speaking of which, they're slowly running down towards the bottom lane.
Yeah, so just being very annoying, very pesky, taking this Pokemon away from Secret Ship. Again, Hibachi, I think this guy has just masterfully learned how to play this Dodrio, right? You're so mobile that you may as well just quickly swipe those Pokemon away from the enemy team because you understand that they do require a lot of experience. And I mean, Secret Ship are still running 2 Pokemon that are rather level hungry. You've got the Mamoswine as well as the Blastoise that both need level 9 to hit their true potential.
Yeah.
So every Pokemon that you steal from them, you are delaying their power spike.
Especially when they've already secured not only the Swablu camp, but also Altera up mid very quickly.
And the Baltoys, and even most importantly, if you can take the buff Pokemon, right? Like that's a big chunk of experience that is just not going to the enemy team. So I think T2, they've really optimized their composition as well as their playstyle with this Dodrio. But we'll have to see if they're going to be able to have a similar result like last game because they just did so well in that previous game. Solution-wise, we can't say what's happening here with Secret Ship because nothing's really going on.
Yeah, and it is going to be a little bit more of a dry spell for Secret Ship for the time being.
Oh, very much, yeah.
And for this Regirock, I don't think that they are in the best of position to even contest, but it being on 50% health, T2 wants to reel them in.
Oh, triple trample, not going to connect, but he will try to jump onto the Delphox. P luckily gets that Citrus Berry and is going to be A-okay, but while this is all happening, they are trying to burn down this Regirock. It is going to go in favor of T2 and Secret Ship. They're going to retreat here. Luckily, they didn't dive too deep as that Regi went down. So this level advantage on T2 is just going to get bigger and bigger, and Secret Ship are going to have to try and figure out how are they going to come back into this game because they are at a pretty big level deficit so far, and they're really trying to siphon all of these Pokemon into Abuya.
I just really admire the pacing as well as the way that they've been able to plot out their rotation so well to get all these experiences in hand, understanding that Secret Ship definitely does take quite a while to be able to not only rotate, but also to clear off all these camps. Now, we have some spots out Haruda. They finally want to go in for a punishment, but Haruda is just hanging on a threat. Will force the eject button to stay alive for a little longer.
Oh!
The Dodrio, though, oh, Booyah! He's going to be able to get it, though.
Oh,
and finally,
Haruda.
they take out the Machamp.
Yeah, he even used his Unite move. He tried to pull a fast one there to try and maybe get a double KO, but unfortunately, just not quite enough. He will lose his Pokemon in that process. But Regieleki looks like it is going to go in favor of Secret Ship. So this is a small victory. If they can get it, I do believe so. Yeah, Marchamp's not going to head there, so they're going to leave it. And yeah, I guess this is probably the best thing you could ask for Secret Ship. They didn't need to use any Unites for that battle. It was just a nice swift KO. And of course, with that level catch-up mechanic, it's really important with every single KO that Secret Ship try and get this experience. Oh, gotta be careful.
Boy.
Hydro Typhoon forced out. Has to use it onto the Slowbro. It's a single. And yeah, they're even actually going to go for the Unite there onto Liz. And now Liz stuck onto that Speed Flux. Tries to get out of the fanciful Fireworks thrown out. Luckily going to keep everyone at bay on the side of T2. They will get the heals back up and a score on Liz. Great recovery from Secret Ship, but there's going to be no Fireworks for this next battle.
Yeah, this is going to be very difficult. Even the Hydro Typhoon was being forced out of Abuya. Now Ajin sees a window of opportunity. Are they going to steal it? Yes, they do!
Oh my gosh! How?
Ajin!
Ajin! What is this beast? This Clefable swipes it right from Secret Ship. And Unites are being used as well. So the Mammoth Mash got used too. No loss on Hibachi. Just going to be able to get out of there. Oh my gosh, T2.
Can't believe it. I can't
Daylight
believe it.
robbery.
It is a daylight robbery. Like, it's a Clefable that stole it away.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to have the supportive Pokemon to, you know, snatch it off where you have like 4 members of Secret Ship right down over bomb side. A little bit of a careless mistake. I mean, like, they should have actually spotted out, but even despite that, how much can you do against this Clefable when it's walking up? Like, is it really worthy to fix your attention? I guess, like, Secret Ship will have to let
Ooh.
that one slide, but
Is
they
this the
are
bush?
capping this one.
The KO bush. Oh,
Oh,
nice pickup. And that
that's-
was even an eject button used as well. So nice little victory there for Secret Ship. Yes, it may have just been a support Pokemon. Although if they lose Pew, that's going to be huge. And they will get that knockout. Fanciful Fireworks did get dropped. I think Abuyan also used his Hydro Typhoon. That was very big. But can they even get the knockout there onto the Marchand? But looks like he gets out of there. And oh my gosh, turn around. T2.
Oh,
Beautiful play.
goodness gracious. T2 are just getting every single resource in this map. It's ridiculous. Sure, they lost one to Lucky. Now they get one more back. And T2, they're just so sharp in handling all these team fights that they always draw out the fly and then co-respond after Secret Ship have depleted their resources. And they're just going to go in this method, rinse and repeat until the rest of the members of Secret Ship withers down. And just in a couple more moments, we're going to see whether or not can Secret Ship somehow pull off that miracle play, because T2 now, not only are they advantages in terms of level,
so
they
Reggie.
have every single Reggie in hand at the time being. Secret Ship, I believe it's a little too late to even come anywhere near this one.
There's no way they even make it. I think the best case scenario, maybe you get a catch on Ajin, but I wouldn't want to battle here if I were them. You have to wait, especially when Abuyan is actually back in base. So if a battle erupts right here, this is going to be so problematic. Oh boy.
5 seconds on the clock, and Secret Ship, they're playing on their side of the jungle territory, so this is not going to be a clear opening. Meanwhile, Hibachi is looking to see if he can basically come in for a flank, and they are about to join right in.
Yeah, he's trying to look for a flank, but he can't quite find the target he's looking for. All the squishies are actually next to the Rayquaza pit, but oh my goodness, the battle. Triple Trample is going to be there. He's actually managed to catch the Delphox, but unfortunately not going to be an easy KO. They will zone away the Dodrio, and now look at this, Abuyan spinning in the front lines, doing the damage. He's still got the Hydro Typhoon. He can use it, but look, they've actually managed to catch the Delphox. Beautiful Unite there from the Machamp. Liz in the front lines trying to catch out the Gardevoir, but he just can't stick onto his target. Now it's just going to be down to these last two on the side of Secret Ship. It's the Mamoswine and the Urshifu. It's really going to have to come down to a really good Wicked Blow, but positioning-wise, can they even get into position to steal it? Oh no, they've lost the Wicked Blow. Mamoswine, can he get the steal? No, he won't. The shielding gonna go in favor of T2, and now it's gonna be the game of defend on the side of Secret Ship, but can they even get it? Oh, Hibachi playing it safe, actually, not wanting to score. I think that's probably the best play here.
Yeah, I mean, so long as they get stalled, they still managing to have Haruda dive right in to score 800.
40
That's all that they
seconds.
need. I mean, they won't retaliate.
Pew!
Pew goes down in the blink of an eye, and Yaku's gonna be the next one on the block. This is way too much to handle, and T2 will just erupt this team fight and just make it uncontestable for Secret Ship, and it will be a clean 2-0 sweep with every members of the block still left standing.
Oh my goodness, T2 in this series, they were looking on point, right? They hit every timing that they needed to. They were getting all of their priority targets. They did a fantastic job. Then actually cutting into Secret Ship's backline when they weren't looking. I think there were multiple times where they got those really big knockouts onto Delphox, and especially with this lineup that Secret Ship have, you need Delphox to be around to do most of your damage. Yes, you also have Abuyan, as I would say Abuyan is that secondary source of damage on the side of Secret Ship, but he alone can't carry this game, because I think we need to be realistic. Liz in both series had a really, really tough time. He just couldn't stick to anybody.
And on top of it, I also really want to highlight Haruda's effectiveness on this Machamp. Like, he single-handedly eliminated this Delphox from even being able to contribute much in these team fights, especially on that Rayquaza fight. As much as everyone's all over the place, he have been able to pull in and out and eventually find the Unite move and just completely wipe not one but two Pokemons at that given point of time. And Secret Ship starting to realize, hey, we lost our back line, and there's not going to be a single thing we can even do to this Rayquaza right now.
Yeah, oh man, I mean, I can absolutely see the idea behind Secret Ship's composition. I just think today T2 just played the better Unite. I think the team looks really crisp going into that series. I think execution-wise, they did a great job with how they decided to engage the fights. Hibachi doing his job, just being a pest, constantly drawing attention away from the rest of his team. Ruin was rather well protected. I didn't really see too many chances where he got jumped on by anybody. I think Buyan was really the only thing he had to worry about. But I mean, you've got Arjun there to protect you, and I think if there's a Pokemon you want to stand next to you, especially if you're being jumped on, it's gonna have to be that Clefable, especially with that Moonlight. The healing is a little bit too much.
And remember, Arjun even stole the Reggie away. And like,
he got so lucky. He got so lucky with his Unite, right? He got the, I think it was Hyper Beam. They got the steal. We might be able to see it in, not this one. I think it's the is it this one or the next one? Yeah.
And just look at Hibachi. Like, his only mission is to chase down the Delphox and cause havoc over the back to the point that T2 says, okay, we're good, we got the Reggie. And then right after that, I think that this was the only few point of time where they managed to find punishments towards Haruda. And from then onwards, like, you go back into the same sort of playstyle that Supership had, needing to rely on every Unite to come into effect. And the overcommitment onto all these Pokemons that needed the levels to be effective, it took way too long.
Yeah, they actually did have a rather demanding composition. I mean, Urshifu in lane, until he actually evolves into Urshifu, it's actually a pretty weak lane. He's not too threatening. Same thing with Squirtle, same thing with the Delphox, and even, I think, Mamoswine's probably the exception. That's probably one of the more aggressive Pokemon when you start the game. But outside of that, they really weren't too threatening. Whereas on the side of TT, you've got this little Doduo that evolves into Dodrio so quickly. He's such a menace, especially at the beginning of the game. But yeah, this was the fight really that Secret Ship really had to win. And you can just see that the team is split. Their attention is split. They can't focus on anybody.
And just keep in mind, like, look at Haruda. He just go all the way through the back, still putting that eject button to continuously give a little bit more pressure and just basically you wiped out what you needed to. So Secret Ship really couldn't do anything about this Rayquaza being taken away.
Yeah. And I think just the Clefable pick in this game was perfect, because not only do you have the Moonlight, but the gravity is so annoying to deal with on Secret Ship, because you're not able to just freely move around the fight. Like, we saw multiple times Liz trying to latch on to the Gardevoir, and then Arjun's there, he's like, no, literally just like slaps him. It's like, no, gravity. And then there's nothing you could do. Yeah, he's like holding the stop sign. He's like, no. So yeah, I think the Clefable, especially with the buffs that it got, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Clefable moving forward. Maybe a little bit less Urshifu, because we are starting to see...
It's such a direct counter towards this pick itself.
It's not just that, but I think it's also the nerfs for Urshifu might actually start to really show, right? We didn't see any games today where Urshifu just sort of like blew up. He was there, he was doing his thing, but it wasn't as impactful as last
I could argue with Hi-Fi's performance, but that's Hi-Fi.
That's Hi-Fi. Why are you bringing this up? I'm kidding.
I guess like in the right circumstances, he can work out, but when it comes down to team fights, when you have an opposing Clefable on the other side,
you need the setup and the backup.
You got an Urshifu, even with you pair it with Cider, what if they both came into the gravity well all together? Like, both of them will be stuck. And
exactly.
Easily, that could just eliminate both Pokemon at the same time with enough effort coming in from your team. So it's a little bit of rock, paper, scissors when it comes down to drafts. And I think like that's the beauty of what we have here in the Asia Champions League. So with that match concluded, that's all the games that we have, but let's get to the updates of the standings to see who's currently leading their way.
Yeah, I'm actually really keen to see what we're going to be seeing on the standings, because this is also going to set the scene for next week, right? This is going to be, at least next week, will be the last chance for these teams to get those points, and these next matchups might actually be pretty important. So as we can see at the end of today, Hi-Fi going to sit pretty. All of their games have concluded and they've been sitting on 12 points. They have won every single series and they have only lost one game out of all the matches that they have played.
And that being the match against Hi-Five, I think like it's kind of forgivable, because everybody else, I mean, they just take an L when they met up. Like, High Five have had that perfect streak until, of course, No Show took
No Show
that
showed
one
up.
pointer away. I mean, they stole 1
Yep.
point, but they didn't really lose any from their end. So, therefore, High Five will be the top seed of East Asia. That will not be changed at any given point in time. But in terms of rankings, to break it down even further, if you guys are confused with the numbers on those screens, well, there's more numbers, but at
Yeah.
least it's a lot cleaner. Of course, starting from the top, High Five
12
have not lost a
points.
single game. This is a huge statement because every other region in the ACL so far have had contests where at least, like they were brought into 2-1 a couple of times, but they have to clean this record. Therefore,
Yep.
sitting at top. T2, they've won so far, I believe,
2 of their series.
2 of their series, and there's still 1 more to go. No Show as well as Eternity, they're going to fight their way to see if they can retain that number 3 position because both are currently tied with 2 losses and 1 win.
Yeah, so now it is effectively time to turn on those afterburners, or at least next week, because next week is going to be the final week for these teams to play. Looking at this bracket so far, I think there is still a chance that we might see some tiebreakers. If I'm not mistaken, T2 are playing Eternity next week. And if Eternity can somehow 2-0 T2, both of these teams could contest for that 2nd and 3rd spot. This is also assuming that No Show lose their next matchup, which I'm assuming No Show is playing Secret Ship next week. But we don't know at the end of the day who's going to win, right? So even though maybe No Show's sitting at 5 points here, maybe Secret Ship win. What happens then? What if, let's say, Secret Ship win next week, but No Show bring it to a game 3, so they'd have 6 points, and then Eternity win 2-0, they have 6 points. You've got 3 teams sitting on 6 points for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, which
Wow.
means we could be seeing some tiebreakers. Look at me doing mental gymnastics. I'm really excited to see some tiebreakers.
Well, for now, I guess we don't have to worry too much because the matches for day 4 has already concluded. Now, what to look forward to next week on day 5 is where T2 will play yet again, this time against the WCS 2022 Korean representatives, Eternity. And on the final game of the entirety of the first stage itself, it's going to be Secret Ship versus No Show. And then, of course, weeks after, we'll finally get our way into the Gauntlet runs.
Oh boy. I'm actually really excited to see the Gauntlet runs because I think we're going to be seeing some really crazy stuff. And mind you as well, this is only week 1 of the new patch. So I think the teams are also starting to get used to some of the changes. Maybe some more teams are going to realize the power of Clefable, especially after the buff. Maybe we see some Shadow Ball Dragapult,
Perhaps so.
The 12% attack buff on Shadow Ball might be enough. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if it makes Dragapult Shadow Ball viable, but I think it's just something to consider.
I really do wonder how effective that could be, right? I mean, I haven't tested it out for myself. And speaking of all these changes,
yeah.
we bring forward on the screen again to elaborate even further. Today, we've seen the Clefable, we've seen the Hoopa. Both have been buffed, but not the Dragapult yet. I think there's a time and place for that. And
One
evidently, of course, Urshifu being played prominently throughout the course of the ACL.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really want to see Water Urshifu because we've still only really seen Dark Urshifu, which was the as quote-unquote broken Urshifu. But I think some teams, maybe for the next week, they're going to start practicing with the Water Urshifu to see, okay, what's the true potential of this? Is this going to be as good as the numbers make it look? And I think just having I think half a week to get used to the new patch wasn't quite enough, so I'm not surprised that some of the teams did go back to their usual favorites. Now, for everyone that's still tuning in on Twitch, or maybe if someone's not watching on Twitch, we do highly recommend it because we have a Twitch giveaway campaign, and this is exclusively on Twitch. All you have to do is to make sure you have a Twitch account, watch the stream on Twitch, and make sure you sign up on Stream Elements.
That's
because
right.
once you've signed up, you're going to start earning points, Hunter. And what do you get with the points?
That's a lot of things that you could basically get with all the points because in our hands right now, which we'll be showing to you guys on screen later on, is that you can get your hands on quite a number of goodies from Pokemon UNITE. And over on the desk, we got
I'll make
ourselves
it bigger. It's a bit short.
booster packs as well as the stacking cans where you could basically flex it to your friends, bring it to tournaments if you want, and of course the folders where you could also
We got a
keep
lot of folders.
all these sort of stats that you're keeping track of the ACL. Oh, we got the weekly tough.
I'll show it on my side because it's actually quite big. There we
Yeah.
go.
There you go.
Yeah, so you got Wigglytuff, Cinderace, Lucario, and then I saw on the Redeem site, there's also Zeraora, there's Pikachu, Snorlax. I think there was one more Pokemon that I didn't realize was there. But if you want to see what other clear folders we have, take a look because these are not your usual clear folders. These are, I don't know what to call them. Are these like hollow flip folders? So it's got one side with Hollowware and then one side with the standard Pokemon image.
That's right. And of course, there is the booster packs that you could get alongside. This one comes with the Galarian Surfetch as well as the Galarian Zapdos, Articuno, and Moltres all together. So you definitely want to add this one to your collection. These are foiled cards, so you know, it's a hard flex. And if you just love Pokemon TCG, I suggest you start collecting those points. And not forgetting, on our hands right now, well, here you go.
My hands? Oh,
Your
thank
hands
you.
and mine.
Right.
We got all these cute little keychains where, you know, like, you will always be
How
accompanied
are people going to
by
see it,
your
Contra?
Pokemon.
You're just like here. And it's like, how
I'm just going to be
see that?
flashing it. This is a Tyranitar in my hand.
There's a Tyranitar. We've got, oh, here we go. We've got Pikachu. It's hard to see though, unfortunately. And we have a Snorlax here. I think there are some more as well. So if you are in, just a heads up as well, the physical goodies are only claimable by people in Southeast Asia. I think you have to check the terms and conditions if your country applies. So if you are not in Southeast Asia, unfortunately, you will not be able to claim the physical goodies, but we do have some in-game goodies that you can claim as well. So even if you are not in our region, we still have something to give. So if you have already registered, thank you so much. Make sure you check how many points you have because you might be able to redeem already.
Yeah, and with all these weeks that have gone on, I mean, you still have a couple more days throughout these stages of the league, and for all these information that you really want to catch on, or you know, you want to see what's gonna happen on every other region other than East Asia for today, check out this website on your screen, and this is basically your Pokédex to know everything that you need to know about Pokemon Unite Asian Champions League.
Oh my gosh, Contra, I cannot believe we have finally concluded the second last week for the first stage of East Asia. Tomorrow is Southeast Asia. We do want to remind you, so if you want to watch that, make sure you tune in here at the exact same time tomorrow. I do believe we start a little bit, is it earlier or later? We start an hour earlier. There we go. We start earlier, so make sure you come back an hour earlier for that broadcast. I promise it's going to be an exciting series as well. But Contra, thank you for joining me today. As always, you're an amazing partner.
Same to you. I mean, like, we always have a good time every single weekend here, spending time with all of you trainers out there, and we hope to see you guys tomorrow for all the action that's going to be happening in Southeast Asia. And on Sunday, don't forget our friends in the India region as well. So I believe that's all that we have to say for tonight.
Yep, that's going to be it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in to the East Asia division. We will see you tomorrow with Southeast Asia. See you, trainers.